Energy is in constant flow. It's the force that carries us to the future. From the great cities to the remotest villages, we make sure the streets are lit, that power is returned, that we work daily 24/7 to deliver energy for everyone through a smart and reliable power grid. This mission inspires us every day. In light of this, let's make a switch. A new brand has arrived, REDES. It makes us want to go further, to meet the greatest challenges, to evolve and be a beam of light in people's lives. We have changed our name and taken on new colors, but our essence is the same. A brand of human values with the best of everyone's energy. A service of people for people. Every worker reflects our company's work ethic. Trust, proximity, innovation, resilience. A brand in constant evolution based on innovation that finds the best solutions and invests in the brilliant ideas that make all the difference in people's and companies' daily lives. A brand of excellence that wants to stay at the cutting edge in the industry and continue to lead projects in partnership with other European grid operators. A brand that invests in smart technologies that support energy transition, making renewable energies a reality for current and future generations. And because energy is in constant flow, EDP Distribuição is now REDES, a new brand, the same energy grid. Because energy belongs to everyone. REDES, your energy grid.
Good morning to you, all of you who are here with me in Porto, REDES Porto headquarters, and also those of you who are watching us and joining us online for this event. My name is Suzette Albuquerque, I work at REDES, and I will welcome all of you and to watch and to participate actively and engage and actively participate with questions to our annual event focused on the theme, the real progress along the road to flexibility. But before we start, I will share with you, for the ones who are standing physically with me here, safety measures. So we are standing in the -1 floor of Oporto REDES Auditorium. And if you hear a sign of emergency, I will kindly ask you to stay calm. The exit is assigned in green near these doors. And I kindly ask you to calmly make your way to outside by both of these doors. Online, probably you are safe at home. The agenda will address the contribution of 10 European projects and also counts with the presence of a representative of the European Commission. We will open the session with Ferrari Carezo, CEO of REDES. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Suzette. Good morning to you all, and welcome to this workshop, Real Progress Along the Road to Flexibility, that we host in Oporto. I regret I'm not able to be present physically in Oporto, but I have the time to open the workshop, which I do gladly. So just a couple of comments just to open this workshop. The first one will be to share with you good news. And I would say that the good news is that these are the best, these are the best occasion to work for a DSO. So I believe that in this workshop, we'll have people from REDES, we have people from different DSOs, we have people that are interested somehow in the business of distributing the energy. And I'll say that this is the best time to work for such companies. Why? Because we, as the DSO, we are central to energy transition in this moment. We face a lot of challenges, and we are crucial for the success of the energy transition right now. So regarding demand, we know that the demand increased dramatically in the last couple of years. We know that we are fundamental to the connection of renewables to the grids. We know that we are fundamental to the connection to the grid of charging points for electric vehicles. And we know that we are crucial for this process at European level and at level of each one of our countries. So I think that we couldn't find better times to work for a DSO than now. Of course, that this comes with a huge responsibility. And when we have these challenges, so we are happy because there are positive challenges, and we know that sometimes we have negative challenges as well, but we are talking here about positive challenges, challenges that we accept gladly. But this comes with a responsibility, as I said, a responsibility in order to deliver on time the connections to our grid, to manage more demanding customers and more sophisticated customers, to deal with a lot of data and a lot of information, and to invest and to take care of a huge amount of money, and to find the funding for a huge amount of investment. You know that there are a lot of reports measuring the investment required to cope with those demands, with those challenges. We know also that there are a lot of assets that have been aging and should be replaced, and some estimates point to needs of funding of 30 to 40 billion euros per year in Europe to cope with these challenges. So those are the responsibilities, those are the challenges. We know that to mobilize this huge amount of the funding is not an easy task. And I think that this is where flexibility is important. As you know, it is somehow a challenge by itself to convince the different stakeholders of the need of invest this huge amount of money in the networks. And I think that flexibility here can contribute in order to reduce somehow the investment need to cope with those challenges. And on top of that, to cope with the different challenges we have from the technical point of view in order to accept the energy produced in different renewable facilities that are connected to our grids. Of course, that we are talking about something that is new, at least at scale, something that is seen by some sectors as the central of this process, and is seen also from by different sectors as something that will never work. And I believe that we will find the right balance between those two antagonic perspectives and try to incorporate flexibility in our networks in order to increase the efficiency of those networks and to better manage the networks. I believe that this workshop and other initiatives like this will contribute to find this equilibrium, this balance between the different perspectives we have here in FACE. It's important to mention that the debate, the different opinions, the discussions are fundamental to find this right balance. And I believe that this initiative and the programs and the projects that are related to it will be fundamental in order to find the right balance and to believe and to find the best way to proceed regarding flexibility and to incorporate it in a business as usual mode in the management of our networks. Regarding this workshop, I saw the agenda, the program. I look at the different speakers we have here, the different panelists, all of them with very high quality, which assure us that we have a very good workshop. It's important also to say that we have here a lot of people, either physically or remotely, and this is important in order to spread the news, in order to discuss and to have an open discussion regarding these matters. And it's also important to say that the organization, and very well, strive and achieves to reach a very gender balanced set of speakers and panelists, which is something that I'd like to underline. And I think that is also important in order to get the different perspectives regarding this and to have a very well balanced set of speakers and panelists. Having said that, I will try to follow the conclusions of the workshop together with Luis Cunha and with the team. And I wish you all the best for the workshop and for the discussions. And have a nice stay in Oporto, the ones that will be there. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you for the presentation. And now I would like to call for George Ponescu, the European Commission Policy Officer, and to give us an update and insights about this energy policy, what is the right balance and issues around flexibility.
Thank you very much and good morning. I hope my microphone works well. Actually, I hear myself in the background. So good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. I am very glad to be present at what promises to be very interesting exchanges for today. I would have preferred to be there in person, but sorry, I couldn't make it. As it was said, I will start with a brief presentation of the developments regarding the strategic energy framework and legal developments on the EU scene, trying to frame up a bit the discussions for today. And I will try to focus on four major components today. And now I realize that I wanted to share my screen. Voila. So the first component, the first topic that I wanted to talk about is, of course, the European Green Deal, which was published in 2019. This is our new growth strategy that underpins all the efforts to transform the EU into a prosperous society, but also a climate neutral society and a resource efficient one. The aim is, as we all know, to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and to continue to decouple the economic growth from the resources used. And Very importantly, in terms of funding, the strategy is supported by no less than 1/3 of the 1.8 trillion euros money for investment that are available in both the 7-year EU budget 2021-2027 and the next generation EU recovery plan. And on these slides, you see a wide range of overall objectives of this strategy, but I will only focus on the one on supplying clean, affordable, and secure energy. So for the clean energy transition, we have the key principles outlined here, which cover the energy trilemma, let's say, looking at the security and affordability of the energy supply, which we see that it's extremely important, especially these days. Then further developing the EU market, looking further integration, interconnections, and all using the digital infrastructure. And thirdly, to look at decarbonization, energy efficiency, energy performance of buildings, renewable sources. So in one word, sustainability, sustainable energy. Now, speaking about the implementation of the Green Deal, which is supported by a very comprehensive array of actions. It started with the working together with the member states, with the national energy and climate plans, and first round of assessing the ambition and the targets proposed by the member states and how these will amount to support the overall EU targets. And the publication of a number of sorry, I keep receiving calls. The publication of a number of strategies, the one for sector integration, the hydrogen strategy, for the renovation, the strategy on renewable offshore, on wind, and a review of a 10E regulation, which was proposed back in December 2020. But more recently, and very importantly, it's the legal comprehensive set of actions, and this is the second major component that I want to mention today. It's the Fit for 55 package. This started to be proposed last year when the Commission made available and put forward legal proposals for aiming to make the EU policies on climate and land use. And you see those here in the pale green, let's say. Policies on energy in sort of light red. Policies on transport in blue, and the taxation policies. So the aim is to make all these policies fit for reducing the net greenhouse gas emissions in the EU by at least 55% by 2030, compared to 1990 levels, of course. Achieving these emission reductions over the next decade is crucial for Europe becoming the world's first climate neutral continent by 2050, and for making the European Green Deal work, becoming a reality. In energy, our strategy is threefold. First, we are looking at prioritizing energy efficiency and achieve savings wherever possible. Secondly, to electrify where we can and to boost the rollout and use of the renewables. And last but not least, to continue to innovate where we cannot electrify, and for instance, in by using more low carbon fuels and hydrogen. So looking at all this comprehensive package, how did it happen? In July last year, the Commission adopted a package of first 12 key legal proposals which included, from the energy perspective, a targeted revision of the Renewables Energy Directive and the Energy Efficiency Directive. And then secondly, it included a number of other proposals that range from targeted revision of the Alternative Fuel Directive and the energy taxation, going to a strategy on forests, a carbon border adjustment mechanism, and an extension of the ETS, the emissions trading system. And thirdly, it was set up a new social climate fund to help the citizens to finance investments in energy efficiency, new heating and cooling systems, and cleaner mobility. Then, to complement the July package, the Commission adopted in December last year a number of additional legal proposals, like a package on competitive and decarbonized gas markets, including renewable hydrogen, new regulation to reduce methane emissions in the energy sector, and the targeted revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. So this is the whole array that you see here. And the adoption by the Parliament and the Council of this comprehensive package and their subsequent sound implementation will put Europe on the right track to achieve target neutrality and achieve our objectives. But let's focus, let's take a look at the energy perspective and look at the energy components. And I just to say a few words, that we know the objective and the technical challenges that we are facing in energy. The green transition requires a profound transformation of the system. And we are switching paradigm from centralized to decentralized production based on high shares of renewables, and that entails a certain level of grid flexibility. It was already said. And electrification is key in, and energy efficiency is, as I said, a must. Prosumers become active players, and the new grid services are emerging, including aggregation and storage. And all this, it obviously requires a different way of maintaining and operating the networks compared to the traditional centralized energy management methods. Additionally, the sector integration approach aims to link better different energy sectors and systems, and helping the flexibility, storage, and security of supply. And on top of all this, we have the digitalization aspect, which is a key enabler and the must-have component. Apart from its need and overwhelming opportunities, it also presents some new challenges. So there are the strong synergies between each of the, coming back to the package, there are strong synergies between the energy-specific proposals and many other components in the 54-55 package. And this is what I just briefly visually show you on the slide. So you have in blue the energy initiative, in this case is the Renewable Energy Directive, and this is interlinked with all the others in certain ways, so they have impact both on each other. These are the linkages between RED and the rest of the package. This is the Energy Performance of Building Directive, the Hydrogen and Decarbonized Gas Package, and the methane interlinkages. So you see, it's quite a synergetic product, and we need the whole of the legal framework to work, not only certain components to work. Now, the third point for today, it's the Repower EU, which is the newest joint European action. And it's framed to address the current challenges. As you know, there are new external factors which are adding to the picture in unfortunate ways. After Europe learned how to deal with the pandemic, and we were gradually getting out of that. Now we started to address the rising energy prices, and sadly, after that we had these huge geopolitical tensions on our doorstep, which culminated with an armed invasion of a sovereign state in our immediate vicinity. And we see the dramatic developments there. As you know, the European Union has condemned in the strongest possible terms Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. These are all unprecedented challenges, and everything seemed unthinkable only a couple of months or years ago. And for all this, the Commission adopted on the 8th of March the Repower EU communication. And the aim is to make Europe independent from Russian fossil fuels well before 2030. And the communication also outlines a series of measures to respond to the rising energy prices in Europe, to ensure security of supply and replenish the gas stocks for the next winter, and to ensure transition to renewable gases and hydrogen. The EU leaders at the informal European Council in Versailles on the 10th and 11th of March this year agreed to phase out our dependency on Russia's gas, oil, and coal imports as soon as possible. And therefore, they invited the Commission to take forward its ideas outlined in the initial communication of the Repower EU plan and fully develop them by mid-May. So looking at what was initially proposed, there were actions on prices, a range of actions on prices to keep the prices in check. You are probably well aware of that. And looking at tax measures, on state aid measures, and also an assessment on how the electricity market works. Another part was the one that I've mentioned on gas, which was actually put forward the proposal on the 23rd of March. And these are ideas on setting out collective EU action to address the root causes of the problem in the gas markets for ensuring the security of supply at reasonable prices for the next winter and beyond that. And there are legal proposals to secure minimum 80% gas storage fulfillment. This is the level, the obligation for the next winter, going up to 90% the years after. And the Commission adopted also markets measures to for market intervention at the European level and national level. And the additional component, as I've said, looking at ways of cutting our dependencies on the Russian gas. The comprehensive development of these plans is being prepared, as I've mentioned, and it was asked by the EU leaders and announced in the initial communication in March. And this further development and details of the plans will be published by mid-May. So we are very close to that. What can I say? Against this highly complex and problematic background, there are numerous economic, social, environmental, technical, and political challenges. And therefore, it remains instrumental that we accelerate our common efforts. The development of the smart and digitalized energy networks and services capable of flexible generation and consumption and keeping the consumers at their core. All these need high investments, but also high innovation capacity and market uptake. Proposing the solutions, testing them, rolling them out it's key in this this time, and these processes must never stop. And for all this, cooperation is key. So I'm very glad to see this very interesting agenda with many EU-funded projects, which are all members of the Bridge initiative. And I know that REDES is also very active in the Bridge community. So I'm looking forward to the discussions on the proposed solutions and sharing the experiences. And I will end my presentation by briefly mentioning the digitalization of the Energy Action Plan that we are preparing. Many of you are probably aware of this, so I will not enter into lots of details here. Just to say that the publication is envisaged for September this year. And this is done because it's obvious that a well-integrated and competitive EU energy market and, of course, the functioning of the grids need strong digital support. Nowadays, the flow of electrons is tightly interlinked with the flow of information and data bits. So our plan intends to cover the areas that are outlined on the screen, looking at both the opportunities, looking how to boost the data exchange framework, looking at the benefits for consumers and mobilizing investments, but also at the challenges posed by the cybersecurity and the energy consumption of the ICT sector. And just to say some final words, if I may, about the data exchange, because it links with the discussions of today. This component of our upcoming strategy looks at developing a competitive market for energy services that help integration of renewables and value demand side flexibility, support the integration of EV smart charging and consumer engagement. And this is done by facilitating the exchange of data that needs to flow for allow all these new services and business models. And we are looking at eventually putting together a common European energy data space. It was asked by a European Council in last year, but also looking at the important elements that were flagged by a wide range of stakeholders, like the interoperability that is needed for all these services and exchange of data, and a governance that needs to be put in place for managing the data space and this digital transition of the grids. Well, if you want more details in the presentation, I have put a couple of links here. One on our proposal and the more administrative aspects, let's say. And also, we had 6 excellent workshops with stakeholders at the beginning of this year, and all the discussions, lessons learned, and even recordings are available on the website. So thank you very much, and I will finish here. Thank you.
And coordinate. You can ask questions online through the chat or here if you wish, and I challenge you to do so. And of course, the speakers will try to respond to those questions. If they are not responsive, we will try to give back to you the answer, but we'll try to do it shortly. Thank you.
So good morning to all of you here and to all of you online. So I'm presenting the foundations that underpin flexibility. And as we all want our house to have good foundations, I believe that flexibility also needs good foundations. And we see these foundations split into three groups: planning and forecasting, network coordination and operation, and interoperability and data exchange. And to talk about this, we have invited 5 wonderful projects to speak a little bit about, and not just a little bit, a lot, about all these themes. So to start, we will start with a presentation where all these 5 projects will tell us how they tackled all these challenges. And first, we will start with the Universal with Pedro Marx. Pedro Marx is the Deputy Director in Policies and Projects Department of REDES, where he has been working for 30 years now. He has degrees both in telecom engineering and in social science, as well as an MBA in management. He is the H 2020 Universal Project Coordinator.
Hello, good morning. So for a quick recap on what's the Universal Project, for me it's the best around, but probably you have some of you have different opinions. So what are we bringing to the European Union? From Portugal, until the Ukraine. We bring a new concept, a simple concept. Sometimes it's so simple that it's difficult to explain. A concept that we call the UMI, the Universal Market Enabled Interface, and a lot of work around this concept. So the concept is a means to an end, not the end itself. What's this? As I said, it's very simple. It's a set of rules, of APIs to help everyone develop flexibility services on a market basis approach. So we try to connect the DSOs with the market platforms and the aggregators. We have those in the project, as you'll see, and hopefully in the future, we'll integrate also the TSOs, big customers, or energy communities. This, in our idea, will be done through the UMI without the need of managed platforms in between. Around the UMI, we bring a lot of additional work, complying with what Rita said and the 3 vectors that we're analyzing in this panel. So we bring a lot of tools to help the DSO do its job. We have 2 market platforms in the project, so it's not faking it. We have real market players with us, with DSOs in the project, and a real aggregator. So we're not simulating, we're doing the things as it were real life. This UMI specification is being finished and will be published in July, so coming soon. What do we have around the UMI? So, as I said, the tools already. We also have been analyzing market mechanisms, and we have made also technical assessment on flexibility solutions available today and tomorrow. We'll deploy this, test these use cases, different use cases in 3 different geographies, here in Portugal, in Poland, and in Germany, and with the 2 market platforms, at least in Portugal, and with different market approaches. New ideas like operations and investment planning using flexibility, dynamic line rating, putting flexibility the other way around. So the DSO as a seller and the generator as a contractor. And the flex station is a concept that we also have in the Poland demo. In Portugal, for instance, we have this flexibility test using for plane maintenance purposes. This is usually a day-to-day need. Rita has worked in dispatch, she knows this. And so we're trying to use flexibility as a means to avoid disconnecting the customers. I won't go further into this detail into this demo. We'll hopefully in some months now present to you the outputs of the 3 demos within the project universal scope. We also have this long-term planning using flexibility, and because this has been a real challenge to the planning departments, these seasonal grid constraints, the increase in hosting capacity, the need of increase of hosting capacity, and new types of load that don't comply with our wish. Sometimes they connect when they want, and we must tackle that. So the idea is to contract long-term flexibility services by reserving them and then activate them on short-term. We have additional tools to help the DSO with this, so to improve observability, to predict better, and to coordinate between medium and low voltage levels. Of course, not forgetting to improve resilience and including the 2 themes I talked about, operations and investment planning. And so we have also these different tools to help with the grid planning. These tools, we recap them in this slide to show you we have a multi-level preventive management framework. It will be sort of presented and described more in detail by Clara, who will be one of the panelists. And so I won't go further into those also. Then that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pedro, for the presentation. So now we have an online presentation from Luigi Migliavaca. Luigi Migliavaca works with RSE as project manager. He was coordinator of the European project FP7 research project, Realize Grid. Then he worked as a project leader in another EU project, eHighway 2050. More recently, he was coordinator of the Horizon 2020 research project SmartNet, and presently he is a project coordinator of also another Horizon 2020 project, FlexPlan, which he will be presenting here, which will create an optimal transmission distribution grid planning methodology by considering flexibility as an alternative to traditional planning.
Okay, thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation of myself and my work. Now I share my presentation. I hope it can be seen by everybody. So I will introduce the project FlexPlan, and in particular I will focus on very briefly on motivation and partnership of the project, what we are going to achieve, The new planning tool that is the core of what Flex Planning is going to create and the added value that it will provide to the industry of electricity. And then the 6 regional cases that are there to test the new planning tool and to provide themselves important responses to the future evolution of the system. So the motivation of the project are here represented on 5 bullets. So first of all, due to the high-speed development of renewables, the transmission and distribution planning is more and more affected by uncertainty. It's clear that the variable pattern of generation of those sources of production, of generation, is endangering in a way, so creating problems in satisfying, of course, the security of supply in the system, and so creates some challenges that have to be tackled at all levels, in particular at the level of the planning, that is the level that at which the project FlexPlan wants to provide some answers. The grid investments, of course, are not something that can be done from today to tomorrow, but span decades. And due to rapidly changing scenarios, newly commissioned lines could be not any longer the optimal choice, and so be regarded as at least partially stranded investments. So building new lines on the other side meets hostility from the public opinion. So creating a new line becomes more and more complicated, and the planning activities become longer and uncertain. Variable flow generate intermittent congestion in the lines that from the technical economical point of view can be better compensated with flexibility than by creating new lines that maybe have investments that cannot be justified on the basis of the number of congestion lines, congestion hours during the year. And of course, on the light of the solutions, there is a lot of debate in the last years about virtual power plants that are something that includes both storage technologies, demand-side management, and generation and variable generation, so that the joint effect of the three, all of the three, can be a predictable injection into the network. That is what we want to achieve. So all in all, the FlexPlan project that started in October 19 and is going to be achieved by the end of March 23, so next year, aims at establishing a new grid planning methodology that considers the opportunity to introduce new storage and flexibility resources, so DSM, in electricity transmission and distribution grids as an alternative to building new grid elements. We want to test that. We are a consortium with 13 partners from 8 European countries, including also 3 TSOs and 1 big DSO concern. You see there the web address in which you can download all our results, deliverables, and everything that we have produced. So what we want to achieve is a new planning methodology, so a new tool that is able to optimize transmission and distribution grids and able to consider not only grid investments, but also storage and the engagement of demand-side management as possible alternatives to traditional grid planning. We want to test this new planning tool on scenario analysis that concerns 2030, 40, and 50 for 6 regional cases that encompass, as you see on the left, nearly all Europe. And they are accompanied by a pan-European scenario that is able to deliver coherent border conditions to all 6 regional cases. But we want not only to use those 6 regional cases to validate the tool, but also to provide a vision on what the possibility, the potential role of flexibility and storage till 2050. And so to analyze at the end by means of elaborating the regulatory guidelines, what could be the right adoption of opportune regulation and measures in order to facilitate the optimal deployment of storage and flexibility in order to reach those targets. The new planning tool is composed by an optimization core that minimizes the sum of CapEx and OpEx for the 3 grid years, 2030, 40, and 50, and optimizes the investments by taking a list of candidate lines and DSM and storage possibilities, and optimizing the choice within this basket. And this list is provided by a preprocessor. So here you see a list of important innovative issues that are introduced in this tool. So best planning strategy with a limited number of expansion options, T&D, the integrated planning, embedded environmental analysis, simultaneous optimization over the 3 grid years, 2030, 40, and 50, probabilistic OPF using 35 climate year variants, reduce it to 2 variants of 12 representative weeks by using cluster-based scenario reduction techniques, for incorporation of CBA criteria into target function, probabilistic elements instead of the N-1 security criterion, and last but not least, in order to ensure numerical tractability, some ad hoc decomposition techniques that use Benders decomposition and an ad hoc setup T&D decomposition. The 6 regional cases are based on a rigorous scenario setup that takes into account the 3 public scenarios by ENSOE of the T1DP 2020, so national trends, distributed energy, and global ambition. Of course, those scenarios are fully described for the years 2030 and 2040. We have extrapolated input data for 2050 by also using the document A Clean Planet for All by the European Commission in order to validate our extrapolations. So all in all, we have 9 scenarios with 3 grid years and 3 storylines that we are going to apply to the 6 regional cases. Grid data is based on the 2018 T1DP transmission grid model, but some sub-transmission has been also included by using public data from OpenStreetMap sources. And we have added also a description of distribution networks till the mid voltage, but of course, due to the big extension of those distributions networks, of course, we had to select a synthetic description based on statistics on the real networks that allowed us to create artificial but so to say likely networks that behave similarly to the existing ones. So presently we have created all the dataset, input dataset. We have created a non-expanded OPF for 2030 that is able to set the background to create the list of candidates for the expansion. And now we are just in May this year starting using the grid expansion tool chain, so the new planning tool, in order to select the best combination of expansion alternatives up to 2050. That is the final goal of those regional cases. Okay, so by end of the project, of course, end of March 2030, we will be able also to close all this cycle that I've explained before, and creating also the regulatory guidelines. We will put those guidelines in a deliverable that will be exposed to public consultation for 1 month. So keep tuned, because that consultation will be really public, so everybody can say his or her opinion about that, and help us to have a more robust set of conclusions. Thank you very much.
invitation to be able to be here and to speak about the Interconnect project, which many of you here should already know because also REDES is participating in the project. So and just to speak on a small case, so since I was given 5 minutes, I'll try not to overstep the 5 minutes. But the idea is just to talk about one of the examples that we're exploring the project. So the project's about interoperability, and the motto here is interoperability for flexibility. So how do we unlock the available flexibility on the demand side? And we already heard some good words of how the importance of flexibility on demand side is crucial because we have all of the issues that we know with the war on Ukraine and the instability that soon will happen also in the energy system. So it's a matter of for us to be prepared to make sure we have all of the solutions in place to allow this interoperability to actually allow different stakeholders to ensure it, from end consumers like ourselves in the domestic environment to large sets of buildings, way through the retailers and to the grid. So the objective of the Interconnect project is exactly that. It's to provide interoperability, but it's not, let's say, to provide interoperability just as a motto, as a theme, as an overall objective. It's to provide the actual tools, a framework, what we call the semantic interoperability framework that allows this to happen. But more on that on the next slide. So where do we departed from? So we departed from the establishment of use cases, relevant use cases for demand-side flexibility. So we had the opportunity to characterize what will be the use of flexibility at the end consumption. Again, end consumption, we're talking about buildings, we're talking about end users at several layers. Then we had also to explain what was the existing background in terms of architectures, in terms of the definition of models, data between the systems, and try to cope with what could be the exchange of data that would give the infrastructure towards the use cases that we have. And again, the use cases are ranging from two main fronts, energy related and non-energy related. Then, of course, we had to identify the core technology. And this identification is also to pave the way of what would be the groundwork done previously on interoperability. And notably, we depart from the definition of semantic interoperability, where we are exchanging more than just data. We're exchanging semantics, so meaning of data, what data means, and to allow different entities between the system to interpret that data and to give meaning to that data. And this is what we believe will be the fundamental change in the landscape of interoperability. So with regards of technology, again, we're departing from existing work from SAREF, which is the reference ontology, and here we're referring to the part of semantics, that already describe a lot of the assets of the systems that we have already in the project and the services that we'll have on the project to explore the demand-side flexibility. Of course, also this means that diving into interoperability. What is interoperability and what is our placement in interoperability side? So to go straight to the issue at hand, to the elephant in the room, let's say, we're not diving into APIs. So it's not a matter of creating another API. It's not just a matter of creating another architecture. It's to create a way of making sure that whichever is the APIs that we have, they are able to understand each other semantically and bridge with each other with a specific adapter that we've created alongside our framework. And of course, to focus on the ways to explore this. So we have 7 different large-scale pilots in Europe from 7 countries, and we have a set of open calls where we will explore this further. So what we have is this concept of the semantic interoperability framework that it's public, that we ourselves within the project will use, and then we'll have this available for the larger audience, so the public audience. Of course, this involves also one of the specific features of the project, which is, again, to have this open to a set of open calls that we will be sponsoring from the mid of this year onwards until the end of the project, where we'll have specific challenges laid in to our coping with the fundamental objective of interoperability, but where a startup willing to develop a new service, a new company, creating a new way of approaching new customers can find some funding and using our own tools to build up their own use cases. A fundamental part that it's important to keep in mind is the contributions that are taken from the project are the same that we are expecting them to provide back. So besides the financial contribution, they should also provide their views, their lessons learned in terms of the implementation of the interoperability side. And of course, we have our own pilots, and I will just present you a very quick glimpse of one small part of the Portuguese pilot, which has residential. Or more to that in a while. So this is what we call interoperability. It's a mouthful, but basically what this intends to describe is a meta plane where you can exchange data via adapters. And these semantic adapters, it's what allow different service providers to actually have their own service within this metadata of interoperability and actually allow them to exchange information, not just data, between the different services they are willing to explore. So if you are a retailer, you can have your own adapter within the semantic interoperability framework. If you are a DSO, you can do the same. If you are a building owner or a building manager, you can do the same. And basically what we depart is from serif-based knowledge interactions that we have established to go through exactly to the reasoning side and try to understand what the service will be. So it's not a matter of having more and more APIs. It's a matter of explaining between machines all those APIs fitting together. What are the key advantages here? You change your API, you change your adapter, and you're back in the game. You change your provider, you have the same kind of adapter, you're back in the game. So all changes that happen in between are easily coped with the semantic interoperability framework. Again, mouthful, it's easy to demonstrate in a schematic, hard to go into the field. So that's our key objective right now. So one of the specific cases that I'm willing to present you today, which actually is some of the work that we're taking into the field, it's actually this idea of the green supermarket, which is a theme that we have been exploring with Sonai, with REDES and Schneider Electric and other partners, of creating the basis to explore flexibility within supermarkets. And if you look at supermarkets, they are a very interesting use case here because they have their own flexibility because they have thermal loads. So thermal loads can cope with the different horizons that we have in terms of demand side done properly. So with predictive tools, with proper modeling and optimization. But then we have also other vectors right now that are coming into the game, namely electric mobility. So the supermarkets are also a form of supporting not only the electric mobility, but to use the flexibility of that electric mobility overall. So this is what we are doing exactly on this use case. It's actually to go through this kind of flexibility that we have in buildings and convert them into usable services for different stakeholders. Keep in mind that all of them want to have their own business, and they are rightly so to do. DSOs have their own interest to look at the grid, which is a massive asset that they want to protect and they want to make use efficiently so they can explore a service on the grid side to actually use the flexibility on the good side for the grid. The building owner itself also wants to explore the flexibility there to make use of local generation, local production, to align the loads throughout of the day to a less cost use of energy and so forth. So all of this is the use case we have from the Portuguese case. And of course, this also leverages other services to be explored. With this kind of ecosystem as supermarkets, there are other entrants that make part of this ecosystem that want to explore other services with other spaces, with other relationships to the existing service. So again, we're talking about here in terms of flexibility, thermal flexibility and electric mobility flexibility. So this is the typical site that we see. So where we have generation on the rooftops, we have internal flexibility from the thermal loads, and we have, of course, within the parking lots, the possibility now to include electric mobility. We're covering this side of the flexibility in a way that, as you will see, different entities ranging from the automation systems that we have in the stores that take care of the lighting, take care of the control of the HVAC systems, that take care of actually the set points to the cooling systems, are included the same way as the management of the building itself from Sonai, for instance, is able to retrieve the set points from these platforms. What it's fundamental here to understand is that how we boost this interoperability. And this is done in a simple way of using this same approach that we have on leverage before, which is this semantic interoperability. And this allows us to have serif-based implementations, which are not just, say, the regular serif. And for those who may not be fully familiar with serif, serif is an ontology, a reference ontology for devices and systems within buildings. It has grown over the last years. It was used to call smart appliance. Now it's smart applications because it's beyond just the appliances themselves. It's actually reaching out to other types of buildings. And the idea here is, again, to align all of this together with the different participants. So we have Sonai, which is clearly focused on providing non-energy service to their users and also using the energy side to reduce their costs. We have REDES as a DSO willing to have a fundamental role here of the sustainable use of the grid and to actually foster the creation of grid-prone services. And then we have, let's say, the underlayer, which is the use of a Sensinov, which is a provider of platforms for tertiary buildings, we have automation from Schneider Electric, and then we have controllers typical from other manufacturers. So all of this is working together, soon to be seen, and it's already possible to be seen within supermarkets near ourselves. So here at Matosinhos, we're already deploying this solution jointly with REDES, jointly with Sonai and the other partners. And importantly enough, we're showing that this is also replicable to the other stores. Actually, other stores are joining this path of interoperability. And this is just one of the cases that we have in the project. So this is clear that we need to align objectives between the different entities. And what this interoperability framework, probably we'll have an opportunity to discuss a bit more the details, allows, it's actually for everyone to have a fishing rod and not exactly the fish. Because if you have the fish, then you're used to get the fish everywhere, and you need to have someone providing you the fish. So you can have also the rod, you can then be able to fish what you need. And this is really important. So if Sonai wants to join this kind of discussion, they had to build their own adapters. When REDES wanted to join also this plan, they have to build their own adapters, and all of the other partners have to do so. Even ourselves, as in Hashtag, we are an R&D institution, and we have an interest of integrating our intelligence, our algorithms, our modeling there. And this is only possible if we align all of these objectives through interoperability. So aligning these objectives with interoperability means that you shouldn't get to choose from your business. And this idea of having this decoupling from your own APIs, it's what makes this work. Also, of course, one specific example, since we're invited to a REDES, it's only polite to refer about the grid side. And this is an important part. All of this it's allowing the use of flexibility into the grids, actual flexibility, instead of having this so-called policy towards flexible, because at the end, all of these players can still use their own business, their own systems in other applications. So this actually is happening in the Portuguese case, and I'm sure that in behalf of my colleagues from the other institutions, we'll be glad to have some of you if you choose to know more about this on the site. So thank you very much, and feel free to find out more about the other use cases that we have in the project, more about demonstrators. We are from 7 countries, from Portugal, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and Greece. So I could be here for the whole morning just to talk about this, but I won't. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Now we have a presentation from Lola Alacreu. Lola Alacreu is an industrial engineer from the Polytechnic University of Valencia in Spain. She works as a senior project coordinator since 2008 in ETRA ID, coordinating and participating in multinational collaborative research projects in energy efficiency and in smart grids. Lola works as an external expert for the European Commission, and it is also a leading action of the Bridge Initiative, Data Management Working Group.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, Lola, we can hear you.
Hi, hello. Sorry,
Hello.
the connection is weird. First of all, sorry for not being there, and unfortunately I couldn't join. I couldn't make it, but I will do my best to present it properly. So sorry, but it's having like problems. Sorry, just a second. Can you see my slides?
Not yet. Okay, Lola, now we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, as I said, as you were already introduced, my name is Lola Alacreu. I'm project manager of ETRA in Spain. I'm project coordinator of the Horizon 2020 XFlex project. It's a flexibility service promoting the cooperation among all the energy stakeholders. As XFlex project is an Horizon 2020 project coordinated by ETRA with a consortium of 12 partners from 6 European countries, covering most of the energy value chain. We have 3 DSOs, one microgrid manager, 1 TSO, 1 battery provider, 3 IT providers, and 3 research institutes. as you can see in the map, we also cover a big part of Europe. The demonstration activities are focused on 4 pilot sites in 3 European member states. The total budget of the project is 9.5 million, so funding 7.3. The project started in October 2019 and will finish in September 2023. So we are now in the finalizing the second period. So we are now in the process of starting the real demonstration activities and therefore the impact assessment. So what we do in Xflex, which are the objectives of the project? At the end, what is the focus of the project is the design and development of the tools that will enable the flexibility, the use of the flexibility in the power system, in the distribution system mainly, in order to increase the stability of the security supply, including distributed renewable sources in normal conditions, but also in extreme weather events. Conditions. And we want to demonstrate how this will impact in the technological, economic, and social ambience, and will creating the participation and the collaboration of various stakeholders in all the value chain. To do so, we are developing, as I said, we are now starting the demonstration of 3 complementary products for 3 different types of end users that are part of the grid, that are the most important in order to focus on the flexibility of the network. The first one is the SemiFlex tool, the integrated flexibility management tool. This is mainly for the intermediate parties that will promote the flexibility of the grid, such as aggregators and ESCOs. Reflex tool is a tool for the observability and control of the system, mainly for microgrids and grids operators. And finally, the Market Flex, the market platform that provide the new market mechanisms for the partners that are focused on the market activities. So this is the architecture of the system, the 3 final tools, the products that we will provide by the project. An intermediate platform that will provide different services and data for the final users and the other way around. And you can see here below all the assets, all the modules that will provide services and data to make possible the flexibility of the grid. As I said, the demonstration activities are now starting. They are focused on 4 main pilot sites, 2 of them in Slovenia, now Untitled Chapter and Luce, 1 of them in Bulgaria, and 1 of them in Greece. We will see very quickly what is it about. The first one, in Untitled Chapter in Slovenia. The focus of this pilot site is to demonstrate the flexibility of the power to heat on an industrial site. This is a small remote town with a district heating system. So the plan, what's the main objective of this pilot site is to create the synergies of the heat production in order to make the best of the flexibility for the grid, also to lower the imbalance, to improve the reliability of the electricity and heat supply, and also to promote, to demonstrate which are the benefits of the cooperation between different actors. The second pilot site in Slovenia is in Luce. The objective is the flexibility to prove how it will benefit the flexibility in a local energy community. Luce is a really small town in a very remote alpine village in Slovenia. So they have a lot of problems because they are very weak network capacity. Weak line connections, and they result in 2 important problems of the grid for the city. They have a very limited. It's not possible to increase the local production due to this the low local network capacity, and it also involves frequent voltages, power outages due to the weather events. As I said, it's a remote alpine village, so the winter are very hard. So what we want to do here is to provide the flexibility to this grid in order to avoid these 2 major problems. through the use of an implementation on distribution renewable sources. For example, electric vehicles, home batteries, PV and wind systems that will improve not only the cost but also the reliability of the network. The third one is in Shanxi, Greece. This is a quite different location because it's a quite a big town, so to say. However, they have also problems with the extreme weather events. They have in winter mainly snowfall and strong rainstorms, which involves problems of the resilience of the reliability of the network. So the main two objectives of this is this pilot site is to demonstrate how we are going to enhance to improve the resilience of the network with advanced control algorithms and optimal management of the flexibility resources that are in the network, and also an optimal coordination of the available infrastructure in order to improve this reliability of the network and reduction and reduce the power losses and voltages. And finally, here is also a very peculiar, so to say, demonstration site. It's in Albena, Bulgaria. It's a summer resort in the Black Sea coast. It's more active season during summer, so they have a lot of difference between the needed of the electricity during summer and winter. In summer, as you can see here, they can accommodate up to 20,000 people, which is like a kind of town. So they have a very fluctuating energy demand through the year, especially regarding to domestic hot water. So what we do in the project is to provide solutions for advanced flexibility manager and in order to reduce the energy consumption and to make the best of the flexibility of the network. So I just wanted to say that my colleague Dimitris Strakas from ICCS, which is one partner of the consortium, during the panel session, we will give you more details about one of the main tools and something that I think it's, I mean, of very interesting and a big importance of the project, the tool to increase the reliability of the network due to the extreme weather events. So if they will present some of the in more detail what we are doing in this case. In any case, if you have some more questions or regarding two other aspects of the project, you can. I mean, here you have. Well, this is not my details. I can share my details now in the chat in case you need something else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lola. Now we have our final presentation with Chris Kessels, who will present Coordinate. Chris Kessels received their Master in Science degree in Commercial Engineering from the University of Hasselt in 2004 and an Advanced Master in Environmental Science and Technology in 2005 from the KU Leuven. She has been working as a researcher at the Energy Technology Department of V2 since March 2008.
Okay, thank you very much, Rita. And hello to you all, and also hello to you virtually. So I will present the Coordinate project, and I'm currently leading the work package, the final work package in the Coordinate, which will assemble all the recommendations and evaluate the demos in the project. So what is the Coordinate project about? The main aim of the project is to establish TSO-DSO markets where TSOs and DSO can procure flexibility in a coordinated manner. The project is in its final stage, so end of June we will finalize the project. So we are currently working hard to get all the outputs out of the demos and to be able to present them in a nice way at the end of June. One of the main outcomes of the project is the market platforms. And very early in the project, we started with the service agnostic categorization structure on different coordination schemes. Of course, this is not work that started in Coordinate. It assembled all previous work of our previous project and other previous projects. But we started with this to have a simplified manner to think about different market settings that you can have when TSOs and DSOs want to collaborate and procure flexibility. So the main 4 questions that we identified is: where is the need located in the system? Who is a primary buyer? How many markets do you have? And whether or not the TSO has direct access to flexibility at the distribution level. And for this last point, we assume in Coordinate that the TSOs would like to procure flexibility of new sources. So these are connected to the distribution level. I don't have time to go to the details, but there are different settings. You have central and local where you only have 1 buyer. So these are the least interesting when talking about TSO and DSO coordination. Then we have 4 models where you have the TSO and the DSO as buyers of flexibility. In a common market, they would do this together. In an integrated market, they would even do this together with commercial parties. And then there are 2 models where you have sequential setting with multiple markets at local and central level. And in one setting, the multi-level market, you would not have, access to flexibility on the distribution grid as a TSO, while in the fragmented market, you would have not. So this framework we then use to come up with our business use cases. And this slide gives an overview of everything which has been tested within the project. So we have 3 demonstration sites. We have 1 in Spain, 1 in Sweden, and 1 in Greece. And the services that we have been testing are balancing, congestion management, controlled islanding, and voltage control. I will just give the general overview, not the details, but so mostly we are working in the time frame of day ahead until near real time, but also there were some needs to also look a bit longer term in flexibility need planning. So this was also added. All the market models that I introduced have been tested in the project, except for the integrated where you also have the commercial parties, but we are thus able with the results of the project to compare these different settings. And then we also realized that reservation of flexibility was a big issue for some FSPs. So also capacity products have been added aside from energy products, and all types of flexibility providers were involved. Then this slide shows a bit the general architecture of this market platform. So we are talking about market platforms here, not data platforms. And the 3 main blocks that we have defined. So there is a block for grid monitoring, for market operation, and for bidding and dispatching. And for all of these blocks, we developed solutions in the project and tools and algorithms. But depending on the market schemes that I introduced before, these blocks will be different. So it's not that we developed 1 platform which has been tested into the different demos. No, we developed different platforms, but we started from this general architecture where you have, on the one hand, in the grid monitoring and operation, the system operators, so the TSOs and DSOs that identify the flexibility needs based on forecasts, based on monitoring, based on power flow analysis. Below you have the FSPs that also gather information, forecasts, that try to estimate the profitability, so price forecast, and would place bids on the market. And then you have the market operation. And finally, there will be market results. And then we also enter into the monitoring and settlement phase where all these different blocks are also involved. We should say that, so we described this architecture in detail, that this is the long-term view. Of course, we had to implement the demos in real time when it was needed during the project. So also sometimes the demo implementation is closer to the present situation. So what we also want to try to do now is based on the outcomes of our demos to really look what this then means for the future. And this is what we are doing in our final deliverable that we are working on now. So we will design a roadmap towards the new market design. And we have identified 5 stops that we will be focusing on. So the first stop is the system operator point of view. So how here we will look at what are the current barriers for system operators to set up such a flexibility market. In stop 2, we will focus on the FSP. So what do FSPs need to be able to participate to these markets? In stop 3, both views will come together and we will see how can we design products, or how did we design, because of course we already did it, design products which take into account technology neutrality, FSP point of view, but also take into account the needs of the grids. Then in the next stop, we will see what that means for the market design and what have we learned on appropriate market designs for these system services. And then finally, the final stop looks a bit further ahead. There we will look at some more innovative concepts. So we will look at the more distributed market structure, peer-to-peer markets, and what could be their role in provision of system services. And then we'll also describe more the reactive power market to see to what extent that could also be a market-based solutions for DSOs and or DSOs in the future. And that was my presentation. So I just want to invite you all to also join the Coordinate Final event, which will be in Brussels, 16th and 17th of June. And we will have the detailed program will be shared soon, so you're all welcome to join us there. Thank you.
So now that we are all aware of the 5 projects, I kindly invite Chris, please, to come and join me. And then I also invite Dimitri Strakas, who will be online. Dimitri Strakas is a senior researcher at the National Technical University of Athens, and he holds a PhD in Power System Resilience Assessment and Enhancement. We will be able to see Dimitri very soon.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Dimitri. Hello. For FlexPlan, we will have Marco Rossi, who is also online. Marco Rossi is a research engineer at Ricerca Sul Sistema Energetico. I hope to get the accent right, in Italy. And together with his team of electricity, network and demand side management experts, investigates the potential of storage and flexibility for the planning of the Italian transmission and distribution grid with the European project FlexPlan. And now here I invite Clara, who will talk about Universal Project. Clara Gouveia is a member of the Center of Power and Energy Systems of INESC since 2011, currently holding a senior research position. She received her master's and PhDs in the electrical engineering from the Faculty of Engineering from the University of Porto in 2008 and 2015, respectively. Welcome, Clara.
Thank you, Rita.
And now I also invite Kemi Dodge-Lam to represent the Interconnect Project. Kemi works for the company Cybergrid and is their project manager for the Interconnect Project that David presented, where her team focuses on bringing flexibility data engagements into the overcharging cross-border demonstration. Welcome, Kemi.
Thank you.
So first, I want to ask you some questions regarding planning and forecasting. So we will start with Marco from FlexPlan. So, Marco, I see that in FlexPlan you established a new grid planning methodology considering the opportunity to introduce new storage and flexibility resources in the electricity transmission and distribution grids as an alternative to building new grid elements. So, do you think that the key to solve the future grid problem in the TSO-DSO cooperation or in the local grid balancing is in these type of technologies? Will you be able to reduce the operational costs, and what will be the environmental impact of such solutions?
Indeed, we have this is, let's say, the main motto of our project is to promote the use of flexibility in order to reduce the operational cost, which is intrinsic in the reduction of the planning cost. We have to say that flexibility has the potential also to manage the uncertainty that we have on the next, say, the next future, but I'm not only considering the next future, also the long-term planning. And we have the problem that flexibility is expected to be mostly located at distribution level, while it can contribute to the planning and to the operation at any voltage level. For that reason, TSO-DSO coordination is fundamental in order to fully exploit the degree of flexibility. And we believe that if it is put in competition with, let's say, the conventional grid reinforcement that we are seeing today, this can provide significant benefits also from the environmental point of view. I think that the audience is muted. I cannot hear you.
Me too.
So now you do?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now I have a question for Clara. Clara, in university, flexibility services go beyond typical congestion and voltage flexibility services. Could you please explain? So what are you doing in university?
Yeah, I think one important difference from the projects we have seen is that Universal is completely focused on the distribution network. And although there is some considerations for the interaction with the TSO, we were initially focused on identification of the needs for the distribution network, and then the definition of the services, considering these needs of the DSO, but also the technologies and the characteristics of the technologies that can provide flexibility. And so there, we try to go beyond the typical congestion that we have seen and is well defined for the transmission. And so we identified congestion management for sure, but also voltage control that particularly for the medium voltage and the low voltage will be critical with the integration of EVs and of PVs. And also try to assess, and we will try to assess with the proper tools for planning the contribution of these flexibility services to support the distribution network planning and also the planning of the maintenance section. So we are tackling different time frames for the flexibility in short term for the next hours and day ahead, in medium term for the planning, and also in long term for the maintenance planning, and in long term for the network planning. We are even, and there we did not define the services, or we are not demonstrating, but we are also addressing the contribution of these flexible devices for the improvement of the resilience of the network. And so we are trying to define the right metrics to evaluate the resilience of the distribution network, and then assess how these flexible resources can improve the resilience together with self-healing capabilities, with islanding, and so on. So we try to identify these different services, considering all these different needs, focused on the distribution network.
It will be really interesting to see how flexibility can be applied to all these different scenarios. Yeah. That will be interesting. So, Dimitris, now I have a question for you. It is hard to find a cost-benefit analysis that justify investment based on low probability events. were you able to prove that flexibility can be an alternative to network reinforcement during extreme events? How do you coordinate it with the traditional grid planning?
Okay. First, let's see why it's important to take into account this high impact, low probability events. So during the last decades, these events, such as natural hazards, have caused significant damages on the system, leaving millions of customers without electricity. And given that the intensity and frequency of these events are expected to increase due to climate change, the severity of these damages is expected to increase too. So it's important to deal with this type of events. And conventional planning methods usually ignore this type of events. So new methods should be developed in order to take into account the impact of these events in the future. And there are two types of measures that can be applied in order to increase the resilience of the system and minimize the impact of these events. First, we have the hardening measures that we can invest in new components and increase the robustness of system components in order to increase the resistance against these types, or use or apply operational measures and use the assets of the system in order to withstand against these events. So hardening measures are usually more effective than operational ones, but they are likely to come at a higher cost. So a hybrid solution might be the most viable solution towards the resilience enhancement. So using flexibility as an operational measure, it's an effective measure since generating, storing, and controlling the energy locally without relying on long transmission lines that might be prone to different threats makes the system more resilient against the external threats. And in the XFlex project, we have developed a tool in order to assess the resilience of a distribution system. And in that way, we can investigate the effectiveness of different measures against extreme weather events. And we observed that the increase of distributed energy resources in the distribution system can increase the resilience of the system significantly, since due to the radiality of the system, in case of a line failure, the downward system is isolated. And if this isolated part has enough distributed resources in order to meet the demand, or at least a large percent of the demand, then the resilience of the system increases. And it's quite important, considering that these events in the future will cause significant damages on the system.
Thank you. So catching up with what you were saying, we have network hardening, and then we also need to build new flexible resources like storage. And now, following this idea, I have a question for Marco, because I see that one of your tool's objectives is to reduce the environmental impact of your solution. And then with the uncertainty, high uncertainty actually, of such long-term plans, do you think that we will be investing in flexible assets like grid storage, which has a high environmental production impact, and that then we won't need them?
Yes, the Flex Plan is considering the environmental impact, and we define a way in order to code it within the objective function of the planning tool. So the planning tool is not minimizing only the cost of planning, but it's also minimizing the cost that the environmental impact is translated to. So intrinsically in our optimization toolbox, we are going to consider the environmental impact, and we have the guarantee that it is minimized in our final results. Of course, we consider both the impact of storage, which is quite significant, but also the impact that new lines or new or other technologies can have on the system. In that sense, for instance, energy flexibility provided by generators, renewable generators, and also demand side management, of course, have a reduced impact on the environment, and for that, those are the solutions that are expected to be favored in the final selection of the planning measures.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So now that we have tackled planning and forecasting, we need to see how we are going to operate all these new technologies and what we have foreseen for the future and how will be the coordination in our grid. So now I have a question for Chris. What were the main barriers that you identify in the project coordinate related to the timing aspects of the market and integration with other markets? What about product standardization and customer engagement? Okay, so I hear three things. I will first maybe start with the first thing you mentioned. So the timing was indeed a very important aspect. And as I showed on the slide, so you can do two types of integration. You can integrate different markets so that you have multiple buyers on a market, or you can decide to integrate it in the timeframes of the existing markets in a smart way. Mostly in Coordinate, we focused on this smart integration in the timings of the markets, although we also have use cases where we have common markets for DSOs and TSOs. How did we do this smart integration? So yeah, we started from existing energy markets and balancing markets and looked at their timeframes, and then we considered the FSP point of view. So from an FSP, you want to be able to participate to different markets and do value stacking. So you should make sure that there is the gate closures take into account opportunities for the next markets. And on the other hand, we also took into account the DSO point of view. So when, and I must also say TSO point of view, but the integration of new, it was mainly focused on the DSO because they had to establish these new flexibility markets for voltage control and congestion management. So from the DSO perspective, it seems like the day-ahead time frame was a good time frame to be able to estimate their congestion needs. And one important aspect was also the timing of the day-ahead wholesale market. So somehow the timing should be after the timing of the day-ahead wholesale market, so that you also have this baseline. And this was also appropriate timing to have other kinds of forecasts like weather forecast and to be able to do the necessary analysis of the grids. So this was then chosen by the Greek and the Spanish demo. The Swedish demo, they took another approach. So the problem that they solve is a bit different. They look at the interface flow, so the subscription level between DSOs and TSO, and there they decided to go for the before the day-ahead market for this time frame, and this would then allow the FSPs to still adapt their consider this flexibility which is bought and consider this when participating to the wholesale market. So we have both approaches and we will make a comparison of that. In addition, so this is more for the congestion and voltage issues which were predictable. In addition to that, also wanted to solve congestion and voltage issues which are not so predictable. So to cope with that, also intraday market sessions were introduced for the different demos. But then finally, when coming closer to real time, there was a time frame which was left for the balancing market so that they also had time to procure their flexibility. Okay, and then you had, sorry, then you had the second point. Yes, what about product standardization? Yeah, okay, I will try to keep it a bit shorter. So for product standardization, in the beginning of the project, and that was actually a task that Vito was responsible for, and we also put it in a proposal, we really wanted to have standardized products for each system services, and where possible, we even wanted to have similar products for different services so that they could be traded on the same market and could be forwarded. But when going into the project, having the discussions on the actual need, it turned out that
the local specifics between countries. So when talking to DSOs in different countries, but also when talking between DSOs and TSOs within a country. That's, for instance, sometimes the technical requirements for existing balancing products were too strict for the distribution level. So for participating from the distribution level to the local flexibility markets. So somehow, in the end of the project, we more see that there is a need for less strict standardization, but that we could propose a few products with some predetermined list of attributes, but that it would be more ranges of value, but still considering that you don't have too much diversity. So it's a bit a balancing exercise that will need to be done. And probably the level of standardization can also increase when markets would become more mature. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the consumer engagement part. So we have been doing quite some activities lately to do interviews with the FSPs that participated in the demos, and we had workshops. And there it was very clear that somehow the benefits, economic or otherwise, are not always clear for FSP, and certainly also the long-term view. So what does it mean? I'm now participating in a demo. If it would be a real market and it would be extended, what would what would be the long-term view? Because of course FSPs also need to do certain investments, and there is a need to convince management that it's a good way to go, which is maybe now easier because of the high energy prices. And then once they were participating in the demos, one point that also was raised a lot is it's not so easy to understand the outcome of the markets, because it's not a pure economic merit order, also technical aspects are considered, and somehow there was a need to have good information on what actually happened and why weren't they, or were they activated in certain market sessions.
Yeah, thank you. All these three challenges, I think that they are common to all flexibility projects.
Yes, I assume.
Yes. Yes. So, Chris, you talked about the DSO-TSO coordination. So, what do you think that should be the main interactions, and what are the main challenges of these interactions?
Yeah, so we mainly focused. I think there should be interactions, of course, in all time frames. Also, in planning stage, that some projects focused on to estimate the long-term flexibility. There were some interactions needed. We mainly focused on the operational time frame, and then, depending on the market scheme that was chosen, you can have more or less interaction needed, or they can be direct between the TSO and DSO, but also indirect via the market platform. And mainly by focusing on distribution level flexibility. The main interaction which was needed was to see whether activation of certain bits would not have counter effect on other bits. That was the main thing, and the main challenge to cope. And this was then main solution was to have this sequential setting, but also in some examples where you have a common market, for instance, if the TSO would want to select certain bits coming from the DSO level, there would be a possibility for the DSO to intervene so that there is a new market sessions where certain flexibility bits which would cause problem on the distribution grids would be omitted in the next phase.
Yeah, I see that coordination is a major topic when we talk about flexibility, which leads me to another type of coordination within the DSO grid. So, Clara, the majority of technical problems related to integration of the ER are expected at a low voltage network. However, the aggregation of low voltage flexible resources can also provide support to medium voltage congestion management. how is Universal addressing proper coordination of needs assessments and coordination?
Thank you, Rita. In fact, this was an initial goal of the project when designing the proposal, was to recognize the importance of these low voltage flexible resources. So we are talking about self-consumption, buildings with self-consumption. We are talking about low voltage renewable energy communities. We are talking about individual consumers that can, in fact, participate and provide these grid support services. And they can either provide these services to solve local problems at a low voltage network, or they can be aggregated and they can provide these services for the medium voltage, for the high voltage, or even for the transmission. But in particular for the distribution network, that was our main focus. For sure, we will have this voltage, we will have this congestion, and they will occur both in the medium voltage and in the low voltage. And so this issue of coordination of the low voltage between medium voltage is quite important, and it was already recognized from the fault detection, from increasing the response of the operator, but for sure it will be for managing and for the operation of the network. And so we try to build this multi-level preventive management framework. It's a big name, but in the end, what we are trying to do is to coordinate both the low voltage tools with the medium voltage tools. On the other hand, we also know that the low voltage network has very specific characteristics and challenges. And so we also consider that it's not possible to just extend what we have as ADMS functionalities that are used for the medium voltage. We cannot extend them to the low voltage. And so we have different sets of tools that are used to forecast the technical problems. And then we try to coordinate the identification of the needs. So we try to establish some kind of iterative procedure. And in the different demos, there are different approaches. So in the case of the German demo, is interesting because they are covering also the TSO coordination with the redispatch 2.0 directive that they need to implement there. And so they are somehow estimating the headroom along the medium voltage to low voltage substation, then at the high voltage to medium voltage substation, and so on. And then they try to coordinate the requests of flexibility, considering also the needs at the medium voltage and the low voltage. On the Portuguese case, we are trying a different approach. We are considering that the medium voltage problems are also affecting the low voltage in some cases. And so we are trying first to solve the medium voltage problems, define the flexibility needs, and then if the problem still occurs in the low voltage, then we will try to solve it more locally there. So we try to build these several level of preventive management tools that are being developed and will be implemented and tested in the different pilots.
I really expect to see them working. It will be fun.
We do.
Yes. So talking about tools, I have a question for Dimitri. So I see that you also developed 3 tools to address grid stability and security of supply, and also grid resilience, giving a special attention to the potential grid problems due to the impact of extreme climate events. I know that testing tools that want to tackle the impact of extreme weather events is pretty difficult. So how did you manage to do it? Or how did you simulate it? How did you do it, Dimitri?
Okay, as you said, the objective of the XFlex project is to test the developed tools in 4 pilot sites in 3 countries, Bulgaria, Slovenia, and Greece. And the aim is to test all the tools to an extent in order to realize all the defined use cases. Concerning the power system resilience module, we have tested this module using data from the pilot sites, and these data are based on historical events. So for sure, we cannot test the tool under real conditions because we cannot create extreme weather events. But we try to test the tool using real data of the network and of the flexibility service providers connected to the network. And we used also historical data of previous extreme weather events.
Thank you. Do you think that there's a possibility of scalability regarding these tools usage, like applying it to other networks?
Yes, in the project we have used open and interoperable standards in order to facilitate the scalability and replicability of the tools, and we have a deliverable dedicated to scalability that discusses all the financial, legal, and technical issues that should be addressed in order to achieve the scalability of the tools. In general, there are technical and regulatory obstacles that should be addressed in order to achieve the scalability of the tools. So what we have identified is that concerning the technical obstacles, the main obstacles are the lack of a common standard and the lack of interoperability between the distributed energy resources. So we need to address this issue. And concerning the regulatory framework, we need a clear framework for the local flexibility markets in order to use the flexibility of the distributed energy resources connected to the distribution system.
Oh, thank you. So now we are changing a little bit the topic to interoperability and data exchange. So now we have forecasted the problems, we planned to solve them. Now we have the tools and Cami, how to make it work. So I have a question for you. So what are the value propositions that can be realized with interoperability and flexibility data exchanges? And how is this being demonstrated in the Interconnect project?
Excuse me. Well, I think that there's a lot of different value propositions that can be made, that can be realized using interoperability as the underpinning to the system. You know, flexibility adds an additional asset, additional options to service providers, and so it really is a fundamental key to increasing grid efficiency and lowering our overall emissions. And, you know, from our perspective, any amount of flexibility can be aggregated very efficiently, especially when an intermediate platform provider is involved as well. They bring a lot of expertise to the field. But one thing that I would like to really press upon, and that we are seeing in the Interconnect project, I think, is the consumer engagement. You know, this has also been stressed by the Commission that this is really a key thing that they want to see as well. When consumers feel empowered and feel like they're part of the solution, this really encourages perhaps additional participation and growth in the participation in flexibility, providing flexibility to the grid. Again, by using interoperability and data exchanges underpinning those workings. And then from the cybergrid perspective, we are the leader of the overarching demonstration for the Interconnect project. And what we aim to demonstrate, some of the value propositions that we hope to realize in our part of the Interconnect project is how flexibility can provide alternative capacity resources to the ancillary services market. It also enables smaller assets participate in the markets, particularly the ancillary services market, what we hope to demonstrate. And also, we want to monetize the assets as well. It's okay to make money with it. We want to bring that value because you need to have that monetary value, excuse me, to implement it as well.
I think that is an important point. In order to increase customer engagement, as Chris was saying, it's not a problem to make money with your assets and at the same time helping the grid. Okay, so following the same approach of interoperability and universality, which is in the name of the project, Clara, UMA, which is being developed within the Universal Project, intends to be a universal market enabling interface between the energy flexibility markets and the DSO. So in your opinion, what are the main advantages of such an approach? Do you think that it is already an advantage in the Universal Project, considering that, for example, in the project demonstrator, we have two market platforms.
Yeah,
and you are doing tools for the two market platforms.
Yeah, so in the end, we started with the definition of the needs of the services, then define the DSO tools that are required to interact with the market and the different processes. And the final end is to define which data needs to be exchanged between the DSO, these market platforms, and in the end, the aggregator. And it's the role of the UMA in the end. The specification of the UMA establishes what is the data exchange for these different services, for the shorter term, so for the day ahead, but also for the long-term services. And so you got this set of APIs that are common to both market platforms from different partners and that are able to implement the services that were identified in the project. And so this is a very important step towards the interoperability of these local markets. Interconnect goes a bit beyond of that with the adapters that David showed, but it's important that we clearly define what is the data model, which are the simplified services and products that Chris was talking about, that maybe for the transmission are a bit more complex than you need on the distribution level. These services can be a bit more simple in terms of requirements and even of validation, have lower requirements in terms of data collection and so on. And so there was the need to have this project, again, focused on the distribution network and focused on these distribution services. And so I think the contribution of the UMA, it's very important for this idea of the digitalization of the energy that we also heard about in the beginning, because it really gives the specification of these services and of this data exchange for the local distribution flexibility markets.
So thank you, Clara. Now I have another question for Cami. So now we see how Universal is trying to tackle these barriers that we identify. But what are, I don't know if you identify other ones, so what are the barriers that should be addressed to enable data exchanges of flexibility information?
I'll try to add something new. But to integrate flexibility data exchanges in a seamless, interoperable way, addressing these barriers is obviously important. And from a high level interoperability, we have so many different, as I believe our colleague Laura Daniela has pointed out as well, there's a lot of different devices, IT systems out there, but they don't all necessarily talk to each other. And so that's one thing that Interconnect does, is a barrier that Interconnect is trying to realize. And this, from the cybergrid perspective, this is a particularly challenging issue when you're looking at establishing cross-border data exchanges for flexibility. And then more specifically, there's things from a data exchange point of view, there's issues such as size offerings, ramping capabilities of various assets, and the establishment of standardized products from market and the technology perspective. So that digs into it a little bit more as well.
Thank you. Now I have a quick question for the five of you. So in your opinion, what do you think that will be the key assets that will underpin actually the flexibility markets? Where will they be? At the high voltage, at the medium voltage? Or do you think that there isn't one size fits us all and it depends on the type of problems that we have? And so a quick answer, maybe we can start online with Marco. No, Marco, 1 minute. While we solve Marco's problem, maybe we can proceed with. Now, yes, we are.
Okay, thanks. Could you kindly recap the questions since I missed the point while I was trying to unmute myself?
No problem. I was asking where do you think that the key to flexibility is in the high voltage, medium voltage, or low voltage grids? Or do you think that it can be in both grids? It depends on the problem.
Well, we see, at least for what is happening in the countries that we are investigating in FlexPlan, mostly concentrated in the lower voltage of the grid. For that reason, we believe that TSO and DSO coordination is fundamental. We have most of the load which is concentrated in the lower voltages, and the same is happening for distributed generation, that for which for their say sparse nature cannot be directly mostly connected to high voltage system. For that reason, in our opinion, is fundamental that there is a strong coordination between different system operators, and also the development of tools that allows an integrated planning and operation of any voltage level of the grid. Mm-hmm. So according to our impression, this is what is happening, and that what, let's say, our research and innovation process should focus on.
Okay, Dimitri, what?
Okay, I would say that it depends on the needs of the system. But in general, yes, I agree with Marco that this because distributed energy sources are mainly connected to medium or low voltage, TSO coordination is necessary and critical. And concerning power system resilience, since I discussed about this before, you should identify the threats against the system, to identify the failures that are more common, in order to decide the flexibility that you need in order to implement operational measures to increase the resilience of the system.
Thank you. So Cami?
I mean, I would sort of echo what he just said. It'll really depend on the use case, as always. Whatever the grid needs, whether that's at the use cases or the needs of the high voltage grid are different than those of the low and medium voltage. But I think, when it comes to flexibility, you really need all the tools in the toolbox. You need to have all the tools available at all levels of the grid to really be able to integrate flexibility into the system.
So Clara?
I think we will need all the types of flexibility, to be honest. So we need large-scale flexibility for managing the integration of large-scale renewable, but we for sure will need at the medium voltage, at the high voltage, and for sure at the low voltage. And so we need the integration of electrical vehicles with the increase of small-scale renewable. Low voltage requires this flexibility. Because in the end, you don't have any devices at the end of the network that the DSO can control. And so there, the role is from the consumer to support and to help the DSO on this participation. And actually, we have done some studies, and technically the solutions are being developed and are already some of them in the market. The electrical vehicle in particular has a very interesting flexibility for the distribution network, for the low voltage and for the medium voltage, and also the small scale storage. That's for sure. Loads, I would say, in some cases might be a bit more complex, and there are for sure some loads that have more flexibility potential than others, such as the thermal loads that we have at home compared, for example, for washing machines and so on. It's a different type of flexibility. It can also help the consumer to reduce its bill, but from the grid perspective, it will have, let's say, a less impact for providing those kinds of services.
So, Chris,
Coming last on this question, I cannot give an opposing view because I think I agree with everything which has been said. So depending on where the need is location, we will need all types of flexibility. So it will be an end-to-end story. I think adding to Clara, maybe living a bit more north, I think also heating and heat pumps will be important as a solution, but also as a problem, a technology that can cause problems. And I think maybe one thing to add also when going very local, I think what is also important, and Camille also said that we will need all types of flexibility and different types of flexibility mechanisms. What is more suited when for which need might be an interesting follow-up workshop, I think.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have a question from our online audience. So, Suzette.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, due to the time, we'll answer afterwards, if possible. Just a quick note. We are going to do a coffee break of 15 minutes. And I kindly ask you to, because of the online participants, to respect that time. So in exactly 15 minutes, we 5 to 12 GMT Portuguese time. Please be here. Just 15 minutes. For coffee break.
I just want to thank...
And I thank you all. I'm sorry. And I thank you all. So the pressure. It's called consumers empowerment. Thank you all for your inputs. And also for those online, we'll try to be fast in the second part of our event. Thank you very much. And I will meet you in 15 minutes. Sharp.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and thank you for your punctuality. Although pastéis de nata, they are difficult to resist. Now I invite my colleague Madalena Lacerda from REDES that will conduct the panel regarding the theme Flexibility in Action. So it's going to be fast. With the participation of Onenet, Interface, Fever, Purity, and Platon. If you want to ask questions, we'll try, if we are on schedule, to answer them either physically or online. If it's not time, we will try to arrange to answer afterwards. Thank you very much, and have a good brain sensation.
Thank you, Suzette, and thank you all for being us with today here in the premises, and also to the ones that are at home. So this panel will be more focused on the practicalities of the flexibility markets. We will try to cover all the different stages of the flexibility markets, this being the preparation, the activation and use, and the measurement and settlement phases. First, we'll have a set of presentations for each of the projects that are represented here in this panel. That will give us a picture on what is foreseen in each of them. I ask at this time just to be quick in the presentation, just try to stick to the 5 minutes time span because we are a bit short on time. And then following this presentation moment, we'll have a panel discussion that will also will cover all of these different projects, and will be basically for us to understand, so make these a kind of a gap analysis to try to identify where we stand and what is still needed to be done to make sure that these flexibility markets really become a reality. So without further ado, I think I will call Luciana Marx, who is joining us online. She's a researcher at Vito Energyville, and she will be representing Onenet Project. Luciana, are you there?
Yes, Madalena, I'm here. Thank you.
Nice.
So I'll share my screen, and you can tell me if you see my presentation. Sorry, here. I'm not quite sure if I present it here. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, Thank you very much for the introduction. Sorry, Madalena, sorry I could not be there with you in Porto. So I'm going to be presenting the Onenet project, and I'll be focused on the northern demo. So the Onenet has a vision to create a fully replicable and scalable architecture. So the idea is to enable the whole European electrical system to operate as one and as one single system. And even though we have this idea of having this single system, we can also have a variety of markets. So depending on the system operators' needs and also on the location of the countries, you can have those different markets inside the single system. And the main idea is to then allow the universal participation of stakeholders. So regardless if they are located in distribution, in transmission systems, if they are small consumers or large producers, all of them could be participating in those flexibility markets. For that to happen, the Onenet is based in 3 pillars on the development of a common market design for Europe, also a definition of a common IT architecture and a common IT interfaces between the different APIs, the different technologies. And the ideas developed, the market developed for flexibility, and also the architectures. The IT architectures are going to be verified in large field tests. The Onenet is then an European consortium of more than 70 partners. It's the largest H2020 project. And as you can see here, we have the logo of all of the participants. This project includes both EDSO and ENSOE, together with a large set of transmission system operators and also distribution system operators, leading IT companies in Europe and renowned research institutions. It was founded in the last call for TSO-DSO customer cooperation and coordination as so it follows from other H2020 projects which also built in the TSO-DSO coordination, like coordinate and interface, and it aims to create this standardized pan-European system of systems approach. And the idea is to combine existing solutions developed in these other projects with new solutions to be studied within the Onenet. So we have 4 demonstrators for this product. For this project, the Northern cluster, the Eastern cluster, the Southern cluster, and the Western cluster, and each of them are going to test the different solutions for their country's needs. So, as I said, it brings together previous knowledge from other H2020 projects related to TSO and DSO coordination. One of the main ideas to propose harmonized products in order to allow a bigger participation of entities and agents within the systems, and also develop one market framework for the procurement of flexibility. This market framework is the basis then to create the variety of markets to be tested within the project. And also based on this market framework, different use cases for each of the demonstrators are going to be tested. tested according to their specific needs of the system operators in their locations, and also according to the approach they want to follow to acquire the services they need. For approach, we're gonna have market-based approaches in some demonstrators, as the Northern demo, which is the one I'll be focused in this presentation, but also technical solutions, and the market-based solutions can be TSO, DSO coordination, also DSO and flexibility service providers coordinate, and so on. At the end, the idea is to have one net architecture platform, so one platform where the multiple solutions developed in different demonstrators are going to be included and tested. So this platform is also thought for connecting all the stakeholders participating in the markets. So as I said, I'll be focusing on the Northern cluster for this panel. And here I give you a big picture of what the Northern Cluster platform is. This platform is based on 3 pillars. We have the harmonized flexibility products which were developed for the needs of the 4 countries in the Northern Cluster, which are Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. And we have products that are different according if they are near real time, short real time, long term, short time, and long term. And also if they are focused on active or reactive energy, and if they are capacity or energy products. So in total, we have 6 different products, and those products are going to be tested in this platform. Another of the pillars of this platform is the flexibility register, which is responsible for registering the flexibility service providers. Also, it's responsible for calculating qualification of pre-qualifying the resources, and also giving feedback on activation and measurements. And at the end, we have also the TSO and DSO coordination. And in this coordination platform, we have then the system operators, which include their needs. And based on that, we have the bids coming from the flexibility service providers through the flexibility market operators. And we can calculate then the best solution for their needs. To give a more clear picture of what's going to happen, here is a general it's a general image of the business use case. So the Northern cluster has mainly 4 big steps. At the beginning, we have the customer process, which includes the flexibility registration, and followed by the pre-qualification process, which includes both product and grid qualification. Product to verify if the flexibility service providers can provide the resources they are willing to, and the grid qualification to check if they're not going to cause any negative impact within the grid if they are cleared. And we also have in this preparatory phase the inclusion of the grid information, because I haven't said yet, but this demo is focused on the congestion management. And then with that information, we have the market phase where we're going to procure the flexibility for the different system operators within the different countries. It's a market-based procurement, and it's the joint solution they are proposing. So it's a joint solution between transmission system operators and distribution system operators, which jointly inform their needs, and then according to the bids they have, the market is cleared in an optimized way. So the idea is to search for the best value stack solution for that. And the constraint selection process of each of the markets within this demo is according to the product, because each of the products have a different are there for a different need, mainly in the time steps, the different time steps. And according to these time steps, then you have a selection of which constraints, if one line or the whole system, or TSO and the DSO whole systems together are going to be inputted in the models. Then we have the activation phase. So in the activation phase, it's basically request for activation, activation confirmation from the flexibility service providers, and also the baseline methodology to calculate if the flexibility which was announced by the flexibility service providers was in fact delivered. And at the end, we have then the verification and settlement process. And then this includes metering the trading and activation data, the remuneration definition, invoicing, and so on. So this is it's a high-level model of what's going to happen. Of course, depending on the products and everything, things are going to be more detailed and different. But given the time we have, so I just wanted to give you a high-level idea of it. So this is my contact information. If you want to know a little bit more about it, you can contact me, but I'll also be in the panel for any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luciana. Yes, you can.
I was in time.
So now we have Nikos Belidis, who is here with us. And so he is a R&D project manager at European Dynamics. Nikos, please go ahead.
So hello, my name is Nikos Belidis, and I'm going to quickly present the Interface project. Interface started almost 4 years ago. We are now running our final year, and the project is going to be concluded in December of 2022. One of the strongest points of Interface is the very wide and extended consortium, which covers the whole energy value chain. And it includes several European TSOs and DSOs, market operators, utilities, an energy regulator, big service and technology providers, research institutes and universities. And we have also NSOE and the Florence School of Regulation. So Interface is based on 7 large-scale demonstrators, which are deployed in 9 European countries. So we have a very good coverage of the European territory. And the demonstrators are divided into 3 categories, into 3 pillars. The first one deals with congestion management and balancing issues. And it includes a centralized energy management system for microgrids, where we deal with basically with aggregation of aggregators. This takes place in Italy. Then we have a grid services management system for flexible low voltage and medium voltage networks, basically dealing with a solution for building operators with hosting renewables. This is deployed in Bulgaria. Then we have the single flexibility platform, which is an exchange platform for distributed flexibilities in end-to-end electricity networks in Finland, Estonia, and Latvia. The second pillar concerns peer-to-peer trading, and it includes a market design for local flexibility, utilizing dynamic pricing in Hungary and Slovenia, and a blockchain-based TSO-DSO flexibility market platform in Bulgaria and Romania. And finally, in the third demo pillar, we deal with the pan-European clearing market, and we have the integration of distributed energy resources into the retail markets and the bridging of retail and wholesale markets. This takes place in Greece, Bulgaria, and Romania. And the spatial aggregation of local flexibility, which deals with the Euphemia-based market platform in Romania. So the main product, let's say, of Interface is the EXA platform, which stands for Interoperable Pan-European Grid Services Architecture. And here you can see an SGAM-based representation of the EXA architecture. This platform is basically hosts a powerful data management middleware, which is responsible for connecting all the stakeholders of the energy value chain and fosters the coordination between TSOs, DSOs, flexibility service providers, market operators, and consumers. In the core of EXA lies a very powerful data management middleware, which is responsible for seamless data exchanges and communication between the actors. And the main target is interoperability. In order to do so, we started from the active system management report of ENSOI and TEDZO, and developed several coordination schemes which are being hosted by the platform, and the platform enables different levels of cooperation and coordination between the system operators and different levels of integration between the interconnected markets. So at the same time, the data management middleware has been based on common standards, and more specifically on the common information model. We have used existing profiles, and we have also proposed new ones that support the new processes that we are proposing. And also all role definitions that for the different actors that participate in the platform have been based on the harmonized electricity market role model. The basic processes that the EXA covers facilitate the different processes that surround the electricity markets. So we support the grid pre-qualification, the resource pre-qualification, by having automated algorithms that help the system operators in performing this process. The same holds for product qualification and for the market operators. And we have created a trading environment for several products where we have incorporated standardized definitions for MFRR, for congestion management, for locational intraday products, and we support the trading of those products, aiding the market operators. At the same time, we allow the system operators to activate the available bids, and we allow the flexibility service providers to upload their metering data, and we are hosting settlement algorithms which can perform the energy settlement. These are facilitated by the core components of EXA, which are namely the Flexibility Register, the TSO-DSO coordination platform. These are the main two components, let's say, and we are very happy to see that also these components have been taken over by Onenet Project, as it was presented before, and extended. And we feature also the single interface to market, which is a set of interoperable APIs to allow the communication to various markets, to different markets. And finally, the settlement unit. So more details can be found on the components on our website, but unfortunately, due to time limitation, I cannot present now. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikos. So now we have Elias Lamprinos, who is Master Engineer and Project Manager at Intercom Telecom and the Project Coordinator of Fever, to talk about the project.
Good morning, my name is Elias Lamprinos. I am with Intercom Telecom and the Project Coordinator of Fever. And I would like to thank REDES for inviting us to participate in this workshop. Unfortunately, I was not able to physically attend the meeting. However, my colleague from the panel, the Spanish TSO, will be participating in the panelist session and also provide further information. So Fever is an Horizon 2020 innovation action that brings together 17 partners from 8 European countries. We started back in February 2020, and we will be closing the project in July 2023. In Fever, the challenges that we are addressing relate to the fact that low voltage and medium voltage distribution grid face operational issues due to the large share of distributed RES and their variability in electricity production. At the same time, there is a need for further electrification of the heating, cooling, and transport sectors. In this context, DSOs are taking cautious approach in increasing the DERS penetration, and there are various good reasons related to this, both related to technical constraints and financial constraints. At the same time, there is a significance on the potential role of storage in RES share increment. So with all this in mind, in Fever, what we are trying to do is to implement tools and services for flexibility exploitation towards a more efficient usage of energy resources, thus enabling a resilient and secure distribution grid operation under affordable cost, of course. In this slide, you can see the various different building blocks that are being implemented in the project. All these blocks are indicated in blue frames. So we have a DSO toolbox that includes components that facilitate DSOs in their planning, monitoring, and operation of their distribution grid, including various functions. We have the flexibility management and trading system that addresses the needs of the aggregators, the flexibility aggregators, providing functions related to flexibility aggregation management and trading, as well as flexibility lifecycle control. And we have a peer-to-peer trading toolbox that addresses primarily the needs of the local energy communities, including functions related to flexibility trading and community management. With regards to the flexibility in action framework that is being proposed also by REDES as a reference point for this workshop, in Fever, we identified, along with DSOs and FSPs, a set of flexibility products, namely the location-based active and reactive power adaptation. We implement, as I mentioned, various functions related to generation and production forecasting. The platforms, so the DSO toolbox and the flexibility management and trading system have a direct link for the exchange of information, and we have functions that support real-time monitoring of the grid, as well as the activation of the flexibility offers. Finally, we make use of measuring data coming from DSOs for the sake both for the DSO toolbox that is being used by the DSOs, but also for the needs of the flexibility trading and management platform that is being used by the FSPs. We will have 3 demos in Germany, in Spain, and in Cyprus. In Germany, we will explore the regional flexibility exchange as well as the role of local energy communities. In Spain, we will study the role of industrial prosumers in offering flexibility services. And in Cyprus, we will explore the role of flexibility within the context of a microgrid, both for the operation of this microgrid in island mode, but also for offering services to the distribution system operator. Finally, we will be having a large-scale simulation of novel flexibility-related market mechanisms for day-ahead, intraday, and real-time balancing markets. Let me thank you for following this intro. I will be available via email for any further interaction you wish to have on this with regards to Fever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilias, for this presentation. Now I call to the stage Stilianos Zikos. So Stilianos is a postdoctoral research associate at the Information Technologies Institute of the Center for Research and Technology, Hellas. He will be talking about the Parity Project.
Hello all, and thank you for the invitation. I represent the Parity Project. The Parity Project started in October 2019 and addresses the structural inertia of distribution grids by providing a transactive flexibility framework through the integration of IoT and blockchain technologies. Our price-driven implicit local flexibility market approach for activating flexibility for the DSO needs is followed. And according to this approach, the DSO imposes varying green prices to the prosumers who can react to these price signals. By adapting the trades on the local market. We have 4 pilot sites in Spain, in Greece, in Sweden, and in Switzerland. In the pilot sites, we have residential and office buildings, municipality building, and fuel stations. Now, regarding the party solutions, we are developing flexibility management tools such as the aggregator toolset, a blockchain-based local energy flexibility market platform that is composed of blockchain agents, parity oracle and off-chain tools, components, and also the DSO toolset that is responsible for smart grid monitoring and management. In the preparation phase, baseline load and flexibility forecasts per controllable assets and aggregated per prosumer are calculated in 15-minute intervals. And the aggregator toolset decides on how and when flexibility per each prosumer in this portfolio will be activated based on service level agreements, grid network state according to the traffic light concept, and green constraints that are set by the DSO. Moreover, dynamic flexibility bundles are formed for trading to ancillary services and wholesale markets. Regarding activation and use of flexibility, asset control schedules are generated and are applied automatically for the different types of controllable assets, respecting user comfort and considering estimation about space's occupancy. Sorry, I will go to the correct slide again. And we're developing web-based user interfaces that are able to present notifications on flexibility activations to the users. Regarding measurement and settlement, after activation monitoring and rules validation are performed by the Oracle component, which acts as a bridge between the assets and the blockchain platform. And the rules are in the form The rules are in the form of KPIs that are defined within service level agreements in JSON format, as you can see on the right. And finally, the settlement is performed by the blockchain agent component and includes the addition of tokens to prosumers' wallets and the application of any penalties according to the rules. As for the next steps, one of it is the deployment and evaluation of the developed party solutions at the 4 pilot sites, during which the engagement of users through workshops will take place. And as another next step is to define the key performance indicators to measure such as the number of flexibility activation events, average self-consumption rate, peak load reduction, and the reduction on costs of electricity from flexibility provision. Thank you very much. For more details, you can visit our website, which is shown on the bottom left.
Thank you, Cilianos. Last but not least, on this part of the panel, we'll have Gabriel Fidel. So Gabriel works in engineering and development at Areti Group ASEA and is joining us online. to do a short presentation on the Platon project. Gabriel?
Good morning, everyone. I share my screen. Can you see the presentation? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I try in a few minutes to describe the Platone project. So we can start for this chart where we can see that Platone is an Age 2020 project starting in September 19. And now we are in the last phase of the project after the designing and then the implementation phase. The objective of Platone is to test and develop some technologies and market mechanism to unlock the local flexibility market. On the left of this chart, we can see the overall architecture where are reported the main actors that are involved in the project. This architecture is used in 3 demos, one implemented in Germany, focusing on the impact of energy community on the local flexibility market. Another implemented in Greece that use some tool that in it the distribution system operator use some tools to directly manage the resource connecting medium and the low voltage, and another demo is in Italy where we implement all the platform for a complete local market flexibility. So in this chart we can see the architecture of the Italian demo, and on the right of this slide we see that we use several platforms and that exchange the data each other for the different phase of the market. We see the market platform where we match the flex offer and the request. After we have an aggregator platform to prepare the flex offer, and a DSO technical platform where we evaluate the needs, the flexible needs of the grid, and also we check the offer awarded in the market sessions for the technical point of view. Also, another point very important in this chart is the shared customer database. It is a flexibility register. All the flexibility data are archived in this point because we have a unique database where all the information about the flexibility are stored. Also, 2 words about the blockchain access platform that is an intermediate layer between the customer and the Platone ecosystem. This blockchain access platform is based on a device totally developed in Platone project named the Light Node. This device is installed in the property of the customer and enabled the customer to take part in the market. On the left, we can see the snapshot of the platform. It is a web port. It is all the market, all the platform have a web portal, and every week we can with this platform run to simulate the issue that we can have on the room area. Here we can see on the left the pre-qualification phase where the aggregator can enroll the resource on the market. To start this phase, the aggregator put the data, the flexible data on the shared customer database, and the DSO read this data and localize the resource on the grid, also defining the flexible area for the TSO request. After this phase, the shared customer database send the main data on the flexibility to the TSO and to the TSO and the market platform, and after the resource can take part in the market flexibility. On the right, we have the flexibility product that we use to solve some issue that we can have on the grid, especially we use this product on the congestion for solve the congestion problem that we have on the portion of the grid that use in the project. Here, there is another important phase that for the market flexibility. It is the procurement phase. We can read this chart starting from the left side, where we have the system operators that send the request to the market, the flexibility request to the market. On the right, we have the aggregator that collect the data from the measurement data for the shared customer database, evaluate the offers of flexibility, and send it to the market. Also, the market is divided in two phases. First phase, where the market platform match the flexibility offer and the flexibility request, and based on economic order, creates a merit order list. The market platform sends this merit order list to the DSO technical platform that check the offer from the technical point of view. At the end of this project, we have this phase, we have all the offer that could be used to provide flexibility in the market session. The market session is divided in day-ahead market session, 1 day-ahead market session, and 6 real-time intraday market session, where we can adjust the results of the day-ahead. Here we can see the activation phase on the left, where the DSO send the order activation to the light node. Light node send this order to the energy management system that select the right scenario to provide flexibility to the market. Thanks to the data gathered from the main meter, the light node certify on blockchain and send real-time data to the shared customer database. When we are in the settlement phase, the market platform acquire this data from the measurement data for the shared customer database, compare this data with the baseline, and evaluate the invoices to send to system operators and the payment for DSP, that after share the review with the customer. The last slide is on the next step. We are in the last phase of the project, and we are defining the second release of our solution. In this second release, we implement also the low voltage and the real-time session. On the other end, as Areti, we would like to use this architecture for an Italian pilot to test the flexibility in a project promoted by the Italian NRA, and we use the same architecture for other two project funded by European. There are we are talking about the Europe Horizon Europe project that work on the flexibility provided by e-mobility and other resource connecting to the medium and low voltage grid. That's all. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Gabriel. And thank you all for these presentations. So as we are again a bit short on time, we'll go straight ahead to the panel. So I will just call to the stage my panelists. So those who are here present. So Ursula Crisper, Joana Sanchez, and Angelina Katsifaraki. Please, you can come. And also online we have Panagiotis Periaditis and Luciana Marques. So just a quick introduction on each. So Ursula Crisper is Head of Technology Development Department in Electroljubljana. Joana Sanchez is from Estabanel, a Spanish DSO and retailer company, and she's working as Innovation Project Manager. Then Angelina is a project manager in Hypertech, and And Luciana, who has already spoken, is from Vito Energiville. And then Panagiotis Pediaditis, who is a PhD student and researcher at the National Technical University of Athens. So let's start with the questions we have here. So we had in the beginning, so previous to the first panel, presentation by George Penasco, who mentioned the action plan for digitalization of the energy sector. And this really proves that, so we are going further, we have a transition that's towards digitalization, and this means that we'll have a lot of interactions with the network. And with this interaction, so this will be a lot impactful, let's say, in the flexibility market. Ursula, what data needs to be accessible by the different parties for the purpose of flexibility procurement, and what roles and processes need to be followed?
So I would here mention first that really a lot of data which are nowadays available, namely, if I just mention that DSOs equip their metering places with the smart meters, and then the smart meters developed since, let me say, in last 10 years, definitely, because this function, which is available as a push function, we call it like this, with technicians, enables much more than the previous, let me say, technology and or technology aspect of the smart meters. So it is, I mentioned the first, the data from the smart meters. This is one, let me say, traffic. Then definitely, if we want to have the flexibilities and the market, we need other information and data. So which means that about the flexibility, I need to know what kind of a product, so the product description, the specifications, for instance, if the product change and so on. So, and for instance, I would like here refer to interface, namely, we have developed several modules which were very slightly or very quick presented by my colleague. And I have to mention here that, for instance, we have the flexibility register. So this is a model which comprises several different data, especially when I mentioned before, data which are in relation to the flexibility. So with the flexibility and the product. Then I have to mention also the DSO, let me say, interaction model, through which this model is especially dedicated for these that both these operators which are present in our interface can exchange information between each other. Because we all know that the projects which are provided as a manual frequency restoration reserve or similar projects which are activated by the TSOs can affect definitely the situation on a distribution network. So, and then I will refer again to my smart meters. So we deal in our interface project with the okay, but I'm
Because of the background noise.
okay. So I go back now to the smart meters. So the smart meters provide 15 minutes data. And for instance, in interface where I'm personally leading the local market, which is a peer-to-peer market, here I have to ensure for my local market these 15 minutes data, why? Just to be capable to calculate the power flows. Then additionally, I must mention one data as well. These are the grid topology data. Usually we not mention these, that also these data needs to be. And then okay, I will stop with just addressing to the specific data. What I want to mention, what was one of the most important also obligations of the interface. We looked what happened with all this data because we deal definitely with some personal data, so we respect the privacy and the protection of the data. And for instance, our platform, IGESA, from this, let me say, more software or technical perspective, we defined functional and non-functional requirements for specific modules, for specific data processing. So we have a complete list where and on how has to be respect that we protect the data. And why is this important? I must mention this because in interface, we are involved DSOs and TSOs, and we are all members of the critical infrastructure. And each DSO in Europe has to implement or adopt the niche directive. And as well, for instance, Electro Ljubljana, we also did the ISO standard 27 and 1000 standards. I will finish now because I think I was too long. Yeah.
A bit. Thank you. But of course, so to implement these markets and really to guarantee their sustained operation, so there needs to have a value and a variety of participants. So, Joana, in your Spanish pilot, you also resort to different types of flexibility resources, namely industrial demand-side response and vehicle-to-grid. What were your approaches for customer engagement?
Yeah, so indeed, in our Spanish pilot in Fever, we have mainly 3 sources of flexibility. They're coming from industrial clients, from EVs, as you said, and also from sets of batteries that we have in our grid. Of course, the most challenging part to engage was the industrial clients because, well, with their collaboration, they were involving their their production processes, which is their core activities. And so far, they are not being directly economically rewarded by that or compensated. So this was a trick point for us. First of all, what we did to be more efficient is to try to identify the clients that would be more interested in participating, and with that we take into consideration factors like their total power capacity or their innovation level in the company. So after that classification, we spotted in the top ranking, we spotted the ones that were highly, or we had high chances that they would say yes. So when we had those spotted, we decided to go for a face-to-face approach. So we went to them and we explained what the project was about. And what we found out was, like, the question at the end was, like, okay, so if I'm not getting any compensation for this, or economic compensation, why should I join? What am I getting out of this? So to answer that question, we came up mostly with 4 points, 4 engaging points. First of all, we offered a total free energy audit for them. That was really useful for both parts, for us to have like a map or a whole picture of their loads and their processes. And that was good for us to start qualifying which loads would be more interesting to account with. And also for them to actually have this picture of their processes and maybe spot, I don't know, inefficiencies in their processes or unknown small consumptions that they could tackle. Second point was that we would offer completely free monitoring and control devices in their factories. That was, again, interesting for both parts, because for us would be like our eyes and our hands in the factories to control the loads. But for them was also good because they could see or they can see real data of their consumptions and disaggregated data of their loads, which is always interesting for them. And another point we used was that actually, if they were to be offering these flexibility services in the hours of the day where the energy price is higher and actually manage to shift these consumptions to the hours of the day where the price is lower, that would, at the end of the day, translate in a cheaper energy bill. So even though we're not directly offering economic incentives, that could be a point that we could use. And finally, what we also used was more like a marketing point of the project, because at the end, participating in this kind of projects always gives the companies a more like green image and innovative image, because they are participating in research and innovative projects, and they show that they are putting efforts on sustainability and environment. So these 4 points worked for us to engage some clients. Nevertheless, we are considering maybe in future phases of the project to back up these points with maybe direct economic compensations and see if the outcome changes or it's better or worse, or we see.
Thank you, Joanna, for this brief description. So it is really a lot about giving or maximizing the benefits to the customers for them to engage in this. Yeah. So with all of this, well, we know that there are several constraints and barriers to the customer engagement, and Joanna was here talking about some issues on the more industrial side. But Angelina, I've seen you also identified different types of barriers for end user participation. Which ones do you see as most impactful, and how can we address them, in your opinion?
Okay. So there are so many barriers in implementing this thing. To begin with, we have to, first of all, discuss the fact that when we are talking about smooth grid operation and the issues that might arise, the end user should not be aware or part of solving those issues. They should continue business as usual, be comfortable, and have their lifestyle as it should be. So what we think, how we see it in Parity is that we actually try to have a fully automated machine-to-machine process and extract this flexibility in a data-driven way without disrupting the daily life and habits of the end users. So in this scenario, we are looking at different offerings, such as, for example, heat as a service, or comfort as a service, making flexible scenarios with the end user saying, okay, I will take over the control of, for example, your HVAC systems, and I will make sure that your comfort will not be compromised, and we will seamlessly extract the necessary flexibility in order to perform the necessary actions to maintain the health of the distribution grid, solve imbalance issues, and so on, and mainly consider a local scenario, so in the local energy markets. But still there are other things we need to consider. So by offering, for example, an end user app, so the users can monitor their consumption and get the extra benefits out of it in order to engage them and give them the feeling that they have power over their consumption, no matter what their primary concern is, environmental or saving money, or no matter what.
So we have this point of just maximizing the benefits, but on the other hand, we have this thing that so the life of the customer cannot change, and they need to maintain their habits. So good points there. But of course, even if you manage to address these different barriers and increase the volume and offers of the resources available, there are still congestions that may need to be solved in a very local level. So, for instance, a case-by-case analysis may be foreseen. For example, this can be done by the introduction or the use of a flexibility toolbox that could really gather different approaches for flexibility procurement, from connection agreements to market or tariff-based solutions. Panagiotis, what is your opinion on these different types of approaches?
Hello.
Hello, we hear
Yes.
you.
Okay, that's good. So, yes, first of all, you're talking about different ways of approaching flexibility, connections, and markets, tariffs. It is first of all, it is important for the stakeholders to know and to understand clearly what is being charged or traded.
Yes, Panagiotis. He's now muted.
Okay. Yeah. But now.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, good. So it is important for the stakeholders to know what assets are being used or purchased or are being sold. What we do usually in this, when we approach this problem, is we focus on energy a lot, and we forget that the assets that are being traded are more than one. It's the network, it's the capacity, it's time, it's comfort, and any other kind of asset that is yeah, I'm calling it asset, but product that can be affected by what we do with the network and with these markets and all the other schemes. Now, in Platon, as you suggested, we focus on network usage tariffs. So we don't charge energy; we charge the usage of the network. And we focus on that, considering that this is not a kind of charge or tariff that can replace locational pricing. This is a principle. And we set the goal that the tariff should be simple, intelligible, and practical. And in order to do so, I guess we are similar to parity there a little bit, that we use learning and data analytics to design tariffs that are not do not interfere in their market and their time framework with wholesale markets. And they are designed to be easy to use for the customers, and they are known well in advance. So we're not talking about a real-time or a day-ahead scheme in this case. And the basic principle is that both local markets and aggregators and all kinds of stakeholders that trade the local energy from distribution networks to the wholesale markets are aware of the network charge well in advance, and they can plan their actions and their schedules yeah, without having surprises and expecting different approaches from the DSO. So that is the whole approach on this.
Thank you very much, Panagiotis. Now, looking more at on the activation, let's say, and use of flexibility services. Luciana, so there are a lot of interactions, especially between different types of entities that are involved here in the flexibility markets. What does Onenet bring that distinguishes from other European projects in terms of coordination between entities?
Okay, so I'll start my answer by giving like a general high overview of the difference, as I said in my presentation. So Onenet brings together previous knowledge from other projects which worked on TSO and DSO coordination as an interface and coordinate. So those past projects, they were reviewed, and the lessons learned on these projects, they were considered, and also the gaps they had, they were studied. Well, in my opinion, I believe that the main difference is that Onenet intends to create a fully replicable and scalable architecture for Europe with a common IT architecture, as I mentioned during the presentation. And this common IT architecture is willing to be able to integrate different markets in one architecture. for the multiple needs of the different system operators. So these multiple needs, they can be congestion management, voltage control, and balancing. So why to create this fully replicable scaled market architecture is so to decrease entry barriers and allow a universal participation of stakeholders, regardless of their location, of their size. So to achieve that, some main propositions are made within the project, and some are different from what was done in the past projects. Some are built upon what was done in the past projects. For example, the product harmonization. So when you have standardized products for the system services, which was also in an effort in coordinated interface, you can reduce the market fragmentation. You can also use one product for different regions and for different purposes. For example, one product can be used at the same time for congestion management and balancing because you have this harmonized product. This also facilitates the participation by aggregators in the provision of the products. And it also helps the decision maker, the investment decision making on these new sources of flexibility. Another difference is that there is this proposition of a market framework for the procurement of flexibility. So this market framework then helps the definition of the parameters of specific markets. For example, in the different use cases, you can use this market framework so to define, to best define these markets in an effective way. And it also allows a better integration between those markets and a better coordination between the stakeholders. At the end, we also have the Onenet architecture platform.
Thank you, Luciana.
Yeah.
Probably we have to
Okay.
to go to go to the next.
Okay.
So Ursula, so we've seen what Onenet brings in terms of coordinations between the different entities. We also had some presentations by Coordinate on that topic as well. And also you have this EAXA architecture that you spoke about, and on the presentation was also really well spoke about. So how is this coordination done or envisaged in the EAXA architecture?
So in our EAXA architecture, actually I call it a platform. I can say that this coordination between the operators is done by also as an also as improvement through different pilots. So because initially at interface we identified, of course, together with the operators, then with the market operators as well. And we have also the National Agency of Energy, and so he is a very important entity. And with all these participants, we identified first the very interesting services. So, and this was the first stage. And then through this, we developed the possible, let me say, services, which will be then demonstrated by each of the demonstrators. So, we distinguish, as told before, three main groups of the demonstration, let me say, pillars. Okay. So, and definitely in this platform with particular solutions enables so these TSO-DSO coordination, so that all the necessary information or data which had to be exchanged are done through this.
Thank you, Ursula. We were speaking now a bit on the different entities on how you can really coordinate them, but now focusing and so targeting more the DSO level. So I know that has been some development, a specific platform for DSOs to solve some operational issues through flexibility. Joana, in your opinion, what are the options for the operator when solving operational specific issues?
Yeah, So the platform that we are currently developing in Fiber, it's called DSO Toolbox. As you said, it's meant for the DSO to operate. It's to anticipate, manage, and act to prevent or to solve grid issues. This platform will have two different operation modes. Would be manual mode, where the operator will need to be constantly working with the platform, and there's the automatic mode as well, where there's no human interaction needed at all. That would be the ideal mode for us. And then for this mode in specific, there's different settings that can be defined by the operator that are, in my opinion, really interesting. So some of them are, for example, you can decide which services you have running. So this means which type of events you want to be predicting. Services can be like congestion management or voltage compensation, self-healing, or yeah, there are several. Another functionality, it's the action priority. So if you want to solve an issue through, for example, grid reconfiguration, or you want to go to the market and do it through flexibility. In the case you want to go for flexibility, you can decide whether you get this flexibility service from the market, or you can use maybe bilateral contracts that you have with asset owners. If you decide to go to flexibility, for example, you can also set the minimum and maximum prices you wanna use for the bids. And another functionality there is that you can also, for example, set the increment that you want to put in the price of a bid if there's a mismatch in the market and you didn't get a match in this bid, so you can put an automatic increment on the price. So apart from these interesting functionalities, there's also a couple of dashboards that I think are interesting mentioning. First, one of them is the notification dashboard. It's a dashboard where the operator can see all the events that are predicted. And they can be classified by type of event, by severity, or by location as well, or time. This is really interesting as well. And last, there's another really interesting tool, analytical tool, that it's like the reporting dashboard, where the operator can get like a full report on the past market transactions and the past grid issues or the past events. And that's also really interesting for us, because then we can really analyze and maybe see some trends or patterns that are repeated over time. And then this can allow us to maybe act and maybe make some intelligent business operation decisions.
Yeah. Thank you, Joanna. So yeah, there is no specific like approach or solution for the procurement. It's really this case by case approach on the different on what the system exactly needs. So we've talked about the coordination between these different entities, and also on this platform here developed. So basically, we have so there are also, sorry. Okay, now we can go to the settlement phase. So basically, considering that we have targeted the preparation, the activation, use phases, and assuming that they are successfully implemented. So this leaves us really with the question on how can we really verify that a certain flexibility resource has really been delivered or has been offered? So there are different approaches or different ways of doing this. There has been some mentioning on blockchain approaches or solutions for this. Panagiotis, why do you think that the settlement phase is not really well covered in the EU projects, despite existing different solutions for this?
Hello again. Yes, no, I don't know if it's not well covered. Really, it's not my expertise to talk about the APIs and the different automations. I will just speak from the power system engineering point of view. And yeah, the issue is that, so when we model flexibility in distribution networks, we often model energy products, and we say, okay, I'm giving upward and downward flexibility. And then the problem is that in order to say so, in order to do that, you have to have a baseline off of which you offer upward and downward directions. And this is easy when you are a large producer who generates and has a schedule and bids in the market. But when it comes to simple consumers, it is difficult to establish that baseline off of which you're offering flexibility. And not only because of, one is that they don't declare a schedule, usually, and then the other is uncertainties. It's not easy to follow a schedule if you are a single consumer, a single user. So this makes it difficult to offer all the range of projects that usually one can see in this kind of setups. And the basic idea here is that one has to be very careful when designing these markets. If they can be scalable and they can be implemented with users that are, let's say, in cases that are not test phases or pilots, when you have people that will not commit to establish a baseline, or you have to think practical what regular people can do and cannot do. So the baseline problem in general is something that we have to take into account.
Yeah, and it is indeed something that is constantly being talked about. Angelina, what do you think about this? So how should we address this step or this phase of the settlement?
Okay, so this is not a right away answer question, but there are three basic things that we should consider, and this is extremely relevant in the case of parity. First of all is the regulatory issues. So we need to move from the traditional simplified tariffs to more cost-reflecting tariffs for the flexibility. The flexibility can't be actually evenly evaluated. There are different factors that should be reflected in the cost of the tariff provided. And this still requires a lot of work. But this is also strongly related to the technology. So even if the technology is there and we have new services for flexibility, we see it every day, we have cheaper equipment and so on. There are still things related, for example, to the data collected. As of course mentioned, baselining is a thorn in the whole process. So from our point of view, we have a fully data-driven IoT-based approach for defining the baseline. But then again, you need a very strong data management framework for that. So traditionally, it would be the DSO who overtakes this task. And nevertheless, this is somewhat disputed lately, and we need to consider first and foremost the security and the privacy of the end customers. So as we see it, we are using a blockchain process to actually be able to provide data to authorized stakeholders who are part of the whole process, and to also, as was also mentioned in the parity presentation, save and update continuously the KPIs that allow us to have these flexible contracts with the end users. So overall, it's a problem that needs to be holistically approached, regulatorily, in a regulatory basis, in a technological basis, and it's not an easy solution. There's still a lot of work to be done on that.
Yes. So, and probably a lot of research as well in this matter. Yeah. So we are approaching the end of this panel, but so don't exit yet because I have a final question for each one of you to answer. I will want your opinion for the same question. So for us to do a kind of a gap analysis to really identify what is missing here, to really try to implement these markets swiftly and effectively. So what needs to be done? So what is still missing for the implementation of these flexibility markets? You can base your answer on market related topics. You can base your answer on regulatory or technological aspects. So yeah, I can start with you, Joanna, and then we'll go to everyone.
Well, I'd say as the first panel mentioned, we're gonna need all type of flexibility in all the levels in the grid. So I think it's really important the engagement of the end users that are actually the ones that are going to be offering this flexibility, mostly in the medium and low voltage. I also see the flexibility as a potential tool to make this. I think it's the part of the energy chain that has recently engaged more, but until some years ago was totally passive actor in the chain. So I think flexibility is a really good tool to make them engage and interact with the energy market or energy field that for most of them is like a totally unknown thing. So I think this engagement that we talked about before, it's really important that it's done properly and that we take into consideration how do we engage them and how do we make them proactive in this flexibility world.
Sorry to interrupt. No, so Angelina, what do you have to say about this?
Okay, so again, as mentioned by all the co-panelists, there are many open issues. As I said, again, I think it is impossible. It is actually very important to properly evaluate flexibility and have this dynamic approach. And as this is actually my field of interest, it's also very important to be able to properly collect and distribute data, to have the proper infrastructure, to have the proper engagement, because it's not easy to engage in customers when it comes to monitoring them and to have a trust in the system and so on. So all in all, it's important to be actually able to properly monitor, distribute, and handle the necessary information to make the whole thing more dynamic.
Thank you, Angelina. Ursula, what do you have to say? What is missing?
From my perspective, still regulation, it needs to be adopted. It's not, I won't say in all the European countries, but definitely there are some where some, let me say, parts are missing to provide all the, let me say, complete flexibility from the lowest part, I mean, from the grid on, from the lowest part of the grid and then to the upper, and to involve all the stakeholders. Then the second, I would again say technological. I say always, okay, we develop one product. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be in relation with the flexibility, it could be the dynamic tariffs or whatever. But behind all these, we need data. And it's very important. Do we receive this data close to real time? Do we need to do we receive, I said. So then the next issue is, can we operate with some historical data? So it's not necessary to have the close to real-time data, and so on and on. So this is an important issue. Yeah, and this is what I want to expose.
Thank you, Ursula. Luciana, what do you have to say about this?
Okay, so I would go with Joanna as well. I think consumer engagement it's key, and I would add that for like big flexibility markets which are not mature enough, the market liquidity is very, very key, which it comes with the consumer engagement, of course. For example, in the Northern demo, even though we are finding ways to increase the value stacking of the bids and of the offers of the not only consumers but aggregators, any type of flexibility service providers, we also forward the bids that are not used in the congestion management to the MERI platform afterwards. It's indeed difficult even to demonstrate, to find though the flexibility service providers to be participating in the market. So if this is not done, then you're gonna have we can have big problems with the high prices and market power and all those things. So I think this is a very key aspect, to communicate, to let them know that they can have value from that, to rightly remunerate this flexibility. So those service providers will be willing to participate in those markets.
Thank you, Luciana. Last but not least, Panagiotis.
Yes, I will be a little bit more pessimistic. I think we should be careful not to overcomplicate the overall ecosystem for the end user. Research has proven that the users barely react to one incentive, one stimuli of the wholesale market, for example. So to create all these layers of markets might be problematic, especially when the data that we consider are only belong to the DSOs. Pretty soon will not belong only to the DSOs. Big tech companies like Google will have access to more detailed data and will provide competition for the users' patterns and information. And yeah, my suggestion would be, yeah, I don't know if I can make a suggestion, but regarding the complications, to focus on trying to approach the users having one incentive per time frame and per voltage level and per per framework, because and one incentive per product type. So my suggestion would be to leave the energy products for the wholesale markets where energy is traded and focus on different kind of approaches for flexibility in the local level.
Thank you, Panagiotis, and thank you all. We have reached to the end of our panel. So yeah, you can leave you can go to your seats. Thank you.
Okay. Finally, we are reaching the end. Sorry for the delay. I think we have done our best, but I think my first words should go to all projects that are presented here today. I'm really happy and impressed by the extensive cooperation that we had this morning, now early afternoon, and maybe late afternoon in some places in Europe. So nevertheless, I think we deserve to do more events like this. I believe this is one of the first that at least that I know that has gathered more than one or two projects to discuss a single topic, in this case flexibility, and I really encourage other projects to do the same, because I think it's very important. Of course, we have the Bridge initiative from the European Commission, which is the key one, I would say. But I think despite that, we can also discuss and prepare the things, because indeed we are doing great things in the different projects. I also would like to thank very much the European Commission for the support that they gave us since the very beginning. George was with us, and it was a very nice presentation, just explaining the framework of the European policy arena right now, which is something I believe very important. And I have my slide now. I will not worry you with a very extensive explanation, just to let you know that these slides try to summarize some of the levels that we need to consider when speaking about flexibility. Indeed, it's not an easy topic, it's a very complex one. And I think that this starts with the policy, as I mentioned, at this moment in time, not only the energy policy, because we see that energy is more than ever before correlating with other sectors, with transportation, with data exchange. And in this case, data plays a very important role. And this is the reason I believe George also mentioned the Digitalization of Energy Action Plan that is about to be released, I believe, in next September. So this really lays the foundation, and it's very important that the projects really give a real concretization to the things that are stated at the policy level. At the system level, I think that today we had the opportunity to face a lot of challenges. If I had to think to myself in which state are we at this moment in time, I think it's very difficult to define. I believe that we have done a lot regarding flexibility, but I see a lot still to do, spanning from system to markets and mostly, and most important of all, to consumers, communities, and the new type of participation mechanisms that the policy people want to promote in order to have a clear energy transition. So I will not go into detail, but it was clear that the 10 of the projects addresses almost every single point in the slide, almost, if not all. And more than one project addresses also more than one item in the slide. And now I think we need also to work together. There is a promise from our side, the REDES side, that we are going to do a compilation after this workshop with some notes. We are going to circulate with you, and after that, if you agree, we are going to release that together with the presentations. I think it's worthwhile to exchange with you all the things that we learned this morning and at the beginning of the afternoon. A final note, just that I think that we really address today not only the policy perspective, also the economic perspective. I took note of, first of all, our CEO Ferrari mentioned the need for investment. It was also corroborated by the European Commission. It's true, we need to invest, but at the same time we need to quantify flexibility. So there is a big question mark when we speak about flexibility. We know that we need flexibility, but we don't know the real amount, and well, we will need it. And then there is also the question, I believe it was raised by Cami on monetization. So it's really important, monetization, at least for consumers, because consumers need to have something in return. But this is also a very important thing to address, monetization, because we also need to agree on a common thing as a society, that this is not a problem of the energy sector. This is a problem of a generation and the next generations, the ones to come. So it's not only about paying consumers to change their behavior, it's about also consumers to understand that they need to change, to have their own ability to change their behavior in order to cope with the climate changes. And this is also very important. This should be a win-win approach and not a single-side approach. And we also had a very extensive perspective of the technological issues. And here I would like to stress 2 or 3 points that are still a little bit far away from being overcome. One is the toolboxes that was mentioned here. Basically, most of the projects, apart from 1 or 2, they really address the topic of the market-based flexibility, but we know that in certain very particular situations, we will need to find other solutions than this more conventional solution. One that was mentioned today was tariffs. There are others possible, but we need to have a word on that in the coming times. Another very important trade-off is between harmonization versus standardization. What should we aim for? Harmonizing everything, standardizing everything, standardizing the relationship with the assets, the physical assets, and then harmonize the things that are on a more immaterial level, like the IT systems. That is also a very challenging issue to overcome. And finally, something that I believe David mentioned, David in Portuguese, is the thing that we need also to think about is how to convince consumers to join us on this journey. So I think the topic is not energy in itself. I think the topic is a combination of different services from different sectors. So the example given from the supermarket is a very interesting one. And we need to work more on that because energy is part of our lives, but it's not our main concern. So we should design something that really makes sense for consumers. And it's all from my side. A final word, because we are in Porto. For those that are not aware of, so Porto is the city that gave name to Portugal. It's Porto Cale, which indeed became Portugal, which is a nice thing that if you want to know some facts and figures about this city, which is a very pleasant one. And finally, I think it was here in Porto, in the 15th century, that was coined what became known in history as the Age of Discovery. So we had a prince, it was the 3rd or the 4th son of the King John I, which was Prince Henrique, which was the guy behind the discovery of the New World. And at that time, he made something we consider impressive at this moment in time. So he was in charge of finding a vessel, a boat, something that was capable to face the winds coming from the north of Africa and the African coast, and to go along the coast to discover the New World. And he decided at that time to rebuild what is called the caravel in Portuguese, a special type of caravel. It's not a really big vessel, but enough one to overcome the main challenge. And I think it was Ferrari that mentioned at the very beginning. I think we are right now in that phase. We are rebuilding the caravel, and we are just on the verge of discover the New World. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for those that are with us online, and thank you special thank for those that came to here, and also very special thank to all the people that has organized this event. Thank you very much. And now we are going to have lunch in the same place we had the coffee break. Thank you very much.